"50 years ago, in Central Florida, was a town that time had passed by. It was a place of orange groves, and Spanish moss, and old people playing shuffleboard. On the outskirts, an airfield left over from World War II lay baking in the sun, with empty hangars and planes that will never fly again. But then one day the runways became straightaways, and the scent of orange blossoms mixed with racing oil in the hot spring air, and the forgotten town was on its way to being known around the world. The town was Sebring. The race was the 12 Hours of Sebring, America's first international endurance event. The course was over 5 miles to the lap, comprised of access roads and vast concrete runways that pounded the cars to pieces. In the early years, it was a race of Ferraris and Maseratis, a place to see Sterling Moss and Phil Hill, and even Fangio himself. The pits were crude, the track rougher every year, the sunburn awful, and the 12 hours exhausting, but it was intoxicating. And a fan wasn't a fan unless he had made the pilgrimage. Now a new generation races here with cars called Viper, Panoz, and Audi, drivers named McNish, and Brabham, and Oberlin. The race is renowned around the world as one of the classics of motorsport. The 48th 12 Hours of Sebring is next. Welcome to the Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring, presented by Dodge. The first Sebring 12 Hours was run in 1953, and today marks another first, the first time it has been televised in its entirety. Speed Vision is about to bring you the flag-to-flag coverage, the whole works. Hello everybody, I'm Sam Posey, and welcome. You know, this track has been described as too rough, too dilapidated, just too old for the modern sports car to run on. But it is exactly because of those characteristics that a driver's best chance for success here is to drive aggressively and to attack. And this race has never been run or won easily. A man who knows a lot about that is Alan de Cadenet, who's been coming to Sebring for 35 years. Alan?
Sam, you're so right. If there's one thing you can call this race, it's brutal. Sebring has never been kind to either cars or drivers. If you don't believe me, ask young Ralph Kellners, who went out in that brand new Lola Porsche the other day. He did a few laps just to see how things were, came in, pulled off his driving gloves, and his hands were covered in blood. It was not a nice sight. The trouble is, of course, that back in the old days, cars had skinny little wheels and tires and great big steering wheels, so the road shocks were acceptable. Today, it's the other way around. They've got great wide tires on the front, little bitty steering wheels, and lots of download. So the drivers get really beaten up inside those cars. It is not nice for them. And of course, if that's not all they've got to contend with, there's one other thing here at Sebring that you really have to take into consideration, and that is the weather. Hey, Calvin?
That's right, Alan. It's not just the brutal nature of the racetrack. The weather will play a factor here in Central Florida. We expect ambient temperatures around 80 degrees here today and a 30% chance of thunderstorms. Now, to the viewer at home, they may think that the open cockpit prototype cars, that would be a major disadvantage, but the visibility issues are really for the GT and the GTS cars. Imagine 155 cockpit temperature. When you add water to that mix, you get steam. Trying to keep those windshields clean at 175 miles an hour is going to be a major factor. But it's not only the teams and drivers who have to prepare for this event. For more on that, let's turn it over to Steve Evans with the crowd.
Good morning, Speed Visionaires. It is one of my goals today to take you inside Sebring. By that I mean into this huge infield where about 100,000 spectators are spending the weekend. And they're evenly divided between pretty serious race fans and pretty serious partiers, those on spring break. And it's not hard to tell them apart. When the sun is blazing down, well, the race fans, they put on a little sunblock. The party goers, the spring breakers, well, a good suntan or sunburn is just a cheap souvenir. Now, if it rains, the actual race fans, they look for shelter. The spring breakers, they turn this place into the world's largest wet t-shirt contest. Not bad either. Now, one thing you have to understand, there's no grandstands per se, no grassy hillsides to sit on. If you want to see the race, you've got to create your own atmosphere. Get up in the air as best you can. There's a lot of ways to do that, and we'll show you some of them. One thing I can tell you for spectators, Sebring is not for sissies. Alan?
Well, that's right. It certainly isn't for sissies, but if it's bright and sunny now, Steve, let's not forget that this Sebring is a 12-hour race, so at least a quarter of it is going to be run at night. Now, nighttime is very special. That's when certain drivers really come into their own. Take J.J. Leto, for instance. Why, that guy is just as capable of being as quick at nighttime as he is in the daytime. He must have cat's eyes or something. Talking of cat's eyes, I'm joined by none other than Andy Marriott, familiar to all you Speed Vision Le Mans fans. Andy, you're joining us on this production. You're pretty excited about it, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think you're right about those cat's eyes of J.J. Leto. He is just so quick out there when it's dark. But he might have to be quick also in the rain, because we understand there is rain the other side of the state. It's moving this way.
Calvin, I think this is your weather that you were telling us about.
Well, that's right, but joining us in the broadcast team today, giving us a true driver's perspective, is our man Dorsy Schrader. He's running with the champion Porsche team. Dorsy, you've never done a day's training in your life until you got this ride a couple of months ago, but you know how brutal this racetrack is. Tell us about the driver's perspective inside the cockpit.
Well, I'll tell you, Calvin, it's a good thing I've been lifting weights for the last 3 months, because this car is unbelievably hard to drive. The Lola didn't have time to do a power steering on it. With the downforce we create in turn 1 with 4 G's of G-force through there, and down here in turn 17, it's all you can do to steer it. I mean, it's really, really hard. Ralph Kellner's already has a hole in his hand that's bleeding, so that's a problem. I don't have that problem after 29 years. I've pretty much worn a big callus there, but it's extremely brutal. 4 G's, your neck gets really sore. It's hard to hold your head up straight. You know, that's going to be a problem as the day wears on, and your arms are just like pumped.
Okay, Sam, Dorsey will be joining you a bit later in the broadcast, but I understand you got another couple of athletes up there with you today.
Athletes may be stretching the word a little bit, but Dorsey, of course, we wish you the very best luck. The cars you saw on the track are making reconnaissance laps. I have with me 2 gentlemen who know a good deal about this track, Derek Daly and David Hobbs. And Derek, you first won here exactly 10 years ago today.
Former athletes, is that right?
Well, that's stretching it too.
You know, one of the dreams I believe drivers have when they come here to a place like Sebring is that you might come with one of the best teams that can give you the resources to maybe etch your name in the history books. I was lucky enough to be in the heyday or the great era of GTP cars. Came here with the Nissan team. We had a car that was so good, the harder you drove it and beat it, the more it seemed to like it. And over these incredible bumps and surface changes here at Sebring, this car just got faster and faster. It oozed confidence, gave the driver so much confidence. We went on to win and happily become part of history, because this is such a unique event to be part of, not just a motor race.
Yeah, it sure is. And David, your story is different. Derek won his first race here. You've raced here 8 times without ever winning, although you've led and had chances. Your perspective is different.
I'm afraid my perspective is very different, and his makes me absolutely green with envy. The first 3 times I came here, I came with absolutely the best machinery, the 2 GT40s in 68 and 69, Gulf Fords, and in 71 with Mark Donoghue in the 512 Ferrari Sunoco car. All of them absolutely great. In 2 of those races, I got taken out when my teammates crashed. And in Mark Donoghue's case, that was so rare for him to have any sort of an accident. And in 1969, it was incredibly hot, and my co-driver, Mike Hailwood, got overcome with heat. At one stage, we had to take the windows out of the car, and it was unbelievably hot. And then in 1978, I came here, was on the pole on the BMW, and then the track bit me, because running down one of those back straights there, flat out, 175 miles an hour in that BMW 320 Turbo, and there was this huge explosion, and bang, and a piece of the track had come right through the floor and joined me in the gas tank in the car. So that was the end of that day. So I haven't had much luck here, but I have got an awful, tremendous power to weight ratio these days as an ex-athlete. Unfortunately, it's all weight and no power.
Well, we are less than half an hour away now to the start, and we will be back with you in just a few moments. So stay with us, because the 12 hours of Sebring is coming up next. It's a long day. Get ready for it.
The Exxon Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is sponsored by Exxon Superflow Motor Oil. Exxon Superflow provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts. By BMW, the ultimate driving machine. And by New Speed Stick Ultimate. Antibacterial odor protection kills odor, protects guides.
Welcome back to Speed Vision's coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring. You know, 15 years ago, it seemed that the glory days of this track were over, that the track was headed for oblivion, but it has been rebuilt, refurbished, fixed up, and it is a very different place. You see the new scoring tower. We're sitting up there on that top floor. We're just 27 minutes now to the start of the race. And today we find that sports car racing is in the midst of a renaissance and a major manufacturer commitment long-term to this sport. With more, here's Alan de Cadenet.
Nobody's in any doubt about the importance of this Superflow Sebring 12-hour race. Just have a look at the international quality of this grid. Way back in 1950, when Alec Ullman ran his first race here at Sebring as a tribute to his late mate, Sam Collier, little did he realize how important this race would become. It's always been fun for drivers to come to Sebring and race. That's the major reason why they come here. But of course, it's also become a great showplace for manufacturers to show their product in this very lucrative North American marketplace. And yet, the one thing that amazes me about this year's race is the sheer variety of different car that we've got here. Steve?
Well, folks, if you like variety, Alan is right. You're going to love the American Le Mans series. Let's talk about engines. We've got flat sixes, V8s, V10s, V12s, some with turbos, some not. We've got power from America, from England, from Germany, and from Japan. We've got front-engine cars, we've got mid-engine cars, we've got cars with roofs, cars without roofs. The only thing they all have in common is they're out here at the racetrack at the same time, so the passing is non-stop, and constantly this racetrack is trying to just tear the guts out of cars and drivers. Calvin?
Well, there's three different classes. We have the prototypes, the GTS, and the GT categories. I was fortunate enough when Derek won back in '90 to be hooked up with the Rouse Racing organization. We won in class, 5th overall. We always had that dream about taking the overall win. Well, that dream was reality just a couple of months ago at the legendary Rolex 24-hour with the Viper team taking victory, but chased hard all the way by the Chevy Corvette factory team led here by Ron Fellows. Ron, can you score the first win for the Vet here today in this form of racing, and is there an outside chance of overall win?
Well, I think we're in our best position in the American Le Mans Series here to give it our best shot against the Vipers. We got our first pole against the Vipers, so yeah, I think we're in good shape. 12 hours here is as grueling as it gets. Overall, nah, not here. The prototype feels too deep, but we just need to focus on getting our first win with a good wrench Corvette. Mr. Earnhardt won last week with his good wrench Monte Carlo. Maybe this will be our week.
Okay, they've made a lot of progress in 12 months, guys. They start up front, but a long way to go.
A long way, and it's going to be a hot drive for Ron Fellows. I was talking to him yesterday, and he said the cockpit temperature inside that Vet, 156 degrees. If it stays hot the way it is now, he's going to have a long day out there. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Speed Vision's coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring. Now, what you see here is rare footage obtained from Speed Vision's vast archives. This is David Hobbs at full speed on the back straight. Will he make it across the straight by the end of the 12 hours? That's why it's such a long race. It used to be a shorter race, folks, but once Hobbs entered it, it had to be lengthened. Well, as you can see, 22 minutes to go now before the start, and let's go down to the grid and Alan de Cadenet.
Sam, you know the prototype category here at Sebring. It's really got very interesting. BMW set the cat amongst the pigeons last year when they turned up here with their new prototype. It had air management by way of a false floor, which gave all kinds of download. And of course, Lola's have followed suit this year with a very exciting new car. But one mark of car here that you cannot discount, they're very quietly confident, is the Panoz. This year, of course, David Brabham's driving. And Sebring, let's not forget, is a great Brabham family stronghold. Sir Jack won his World Championship, or clinched it here. And I think, David, you've definitely got something to prove here as far as Brabhams are concerned in this Panoz, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so, because my dad had a great race here in 1959 to win the World Championship. And my two brothers, Gary and Jeffrey, both won here together. And so I've yet to finish across the line first. I finished first in class and second overall, so I'd like to do one better.
But this Panoz is a really seriously well-sorted car now, isn't it? You've worked really hard on it, and I think you're quietly confident.
Well, I mean, you know, the guys have done a great job over the winter preparing it and getting it to the shape that it's in now. We've obviously ran it last year, and we know a lot more about it going into this race. You know, we've got great partners like Michelin, who have given us some fantastic tyres again, and of course we've had some support from Sensormatic, and everything's just gelling quite nicely. I'm looking forward to going out there and hopefully at the end being on the podium.
Now, did you have some problems with your wrist, I heard? I mean, there's a lot of drivers suffering here from the conditions because it's notoriously bumpy.
Yeah, it's very bumpy. I mean, as you can see, I've strapped up both my wrists. It's only a precaution. I mean, they feel okay. It's just that I know that this particular racetrack, by the end of the 12 hours, your wrist can be quite painful. So all week I've been wearing them. A couple of other our drivers have been doing it as well. It's really just a precaution. So, you know, the bumps are just so severe sometimes in this car that you have to protect yourself.
And there's the weather, of course. We've been talking about the weather. I mean, they say it might rain, but is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing for you?
Well, I think everyone's going to be in the same boat. I mean, we'll just have to go with the flow, see what happens, what will be, and, you know, we just have to do our best, and whatever the weather throws at us, we just have to be, you know, mentally prepared to handle any situation.
Well, there we have it from the man himself. Steve?
1 year ago, it was a 911 turbo Porsche just like this one that won the GTS class here at Sebring. The lead driver was Martin Snow. But things have changed dramatically since then. Last year, the Corvette was still in diapers, having an awful lot of accidents and problems, and the Viper was yet to even reach this short. When the Viper did, it dominated and won the series. It's dominated all over the world. But the Corvette a few weeks ago in Daytona proved it's now got on long pants and doesn't need suspenders, running within seconds of the lead Viper for the overall title. The only thing Porsche may have going for it is its famous reliability, and here at Sebring, that's always a plus. Calvin?
Well, in the GTS category, it should be a battle between the American muscle cars, but in the GT category, it's really the pride of Germany at stake. We have 17 of these new Porsche 911 GT3R cars in the field today, but they're going to be actually pursued by the BMW M3 team. Now, not only the older car, but PTG have prepared the brand new 2001 M3, codenamed the E46, and it's shown well in testing, but not as strong as they hoped it would be. It's really late in its development stages, so they're really going to be struggling a little bit here today, but a lot on the line here in the various class categories. Alan?
I'm here with Alan McNish, who of course is a Le Mans winner, and I think, Alan, you landed one of the hot seats at this Sebring race.
Yes, racing for Audi, I think, as we saw in the qualifying, that they've made tremendous progress since their debut last year, and at the moment we're first and second on the grid. We seem to be pretty quick in all conditions, so I'm quite confident that we've got a good race car. The question is, how good is all the other race cars?
But you've got Reynald Joost, of course, as your governor, and let's face it, he's one of the very best long-distance racing's ever had.
Yes, the boss has won quite a lot of races in Le Mans and also in this type of racing over here in the States. So I think we do have a very, very good technical team in Audi, but we've got a very good racing team in the Joost team.
Well, I looked at the car last year at Le Mans. It was brand new, and of course it's completely different now, and that Joost breathing on it has definitely made you competitive. As you say, you're right up the very front of the grid, so you must be favourites for a victory here.
I think favourites for a 12-hour victory at Sebring is a very difficult thing to say, but the one thing we can say is that we've prepared the best way we can, and we are confident with what we have, and now the time of truth has come, and in 10 minutes then the race will start.
How are your wrists standing up to it? We've heard a lot of drivers groaning about their wrists.
No, actually the car feels very comfortable to drive, and we don't have any problems like that. I've heard of other drivers and other cars finding it difficult on the bumps, but that's one thing since we've started testing here a month ago, we found that the car's very drivable, and drivable over long distances, so I think when it comes to race conditions, we're quite good.
We're all looking forward to it, and so are millions of other Speed Vision viewers. Steve?
Well, under the French colors is a 91 Viper driven by Olivier Beretta, who won the title last year. You're kind of in a Corvette sandwich. You got the Corvette at the pole, the Corvette behind your last Viper, but the pole is not important here in a 12-hour race.
No, but they have done a great job, and it's good that the both cars are similar, and on the speed that's make maybe more interesting the race for the car, for the spectators, and of course the race is very long, but I'm quite confident. It's a little bit difficult with this track, with the tarmac, because it's some beton, some tarmac, and we didn't know about the weather, but it will be interesting, and the weather will be the same for everyone.
Have a safe ride.
Thanks
Can't do
very
it
much.
then.
Bye.
And I can tell you one thing, the crowd in that infield will be rooting for one or the other, the Dodge Viper or the Chevrolet Corvette.
Well, the strength of that Audi team may very well let it take a place in history. Only 5 manufacturers have ever won both Sebring and Le Mans in the same year: Jaguar, Ferrari, Ford, Porsche, and BMW, with Audi maybe adding itself to that list this year. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 12 Hours of Sebring, which is about to unfold. We're very close to the start. You see the grid there. 42 cars from all around the world on the grid in what appears to be one of the strongest fields in history. Less than 14 minutes to go now before the green. They will, of course, be going out on a warm-up lap. Now, with me is Greg Kramer, and, of course, the announced team, just like the driver's team, is going to get some relief partway through the race, and you're it. After about 3 hours, we're going to have Greg Kramer in here instead of Derek and David and myself. And Greg, you started coming here in the late early 1990s. That makes you a rookie.
I'm a rookie, and obviously my experience personal in terms of being here is indeed in the 90s. But one thing I've seen just in this event's 5th decade is we have seen 12-hour brawls conducted under blazing sun in tropical heat and humidity. We've also seen races that have been stopped for hours because of tropical and torrential rains. It produces some unbelievably mixed results. There is no question of that. And I've come to believe in watching this that you don't so much win Sebring as you simply survive faster than anybody else. And the only thing that I found you can predict here is there will always be some great stories. And I really think one of the most compelling now, we heard Alan McNish talking about it, is that of the Audis. When they were here last year, when they were at Le Mans last year, they were virtually off the pace, and they have made some significant changes. When you look at the cars now, they don't bear a resemblance to the cars that were here and at Le Mans. They're not really concerned anymore, Audi isn't, about the look of the car mirroring the stock Audi. They have committed to a car that will win the race. And I think a lot of that, as Alan said, is that they are really listening to Reinhold Jost. Remember, he used to make a habit of embarrassing the factories at their own game at Le Mans. Audi was wise to pick him up. They're listening to him now, and Audi is committed now to the win, not just to the show, and it's going to be interesting. They've got a lot of competitors to go against, though, Sam, and of course they've got Sebring. And when you're at this event, I think you always bet on Sebring.
Well, it's a Sebring factor, which, as David Hobbs said, can change anything at any moment. You see the drivers starting to get ready now, and in the Panoz. We will be back in just a moment. The start, very close. Stay with us. This is the sky over Central Florida today, March 18th, 2000. Below it, the concrete runways of an old airfield near a town called Sebring. The runways are quiet and empty now, but in a few minutes, they will be jammed with the fastest sports and GT cars in the world. Cars driven by men and women in pursuit of the glory that goes with winning the 48th running of this country's great endurance race, the 12 Hours of Sebring. Hello everybody, I'm Sam Posey, and for those of you who are just joining us, today a Speed Vision first, the first live coverage of the entire 12 hours. Flag to flag, all the good stuff, the full enchilada. Now we're going to go down to the pits and Alan de Cadenet.
Yeah, well, this is it, Sam. You know, anybody out there that's ever done any kind of competitive event knows how intrepid all these guys are feeling. This race is going to start very soon. Everybody's hearts are beating a little faster. In fact, my own is too, because we're all going to be here for 12 hours bringing you this fantastic race. And as I said, any of you who've done any kind of competition know exactly how these guys feel. They want to leave the grid, get round that first turn, get round on that first lap, because although this is a bit of a sprint race, it's still 12 hours. And to finish first you have to finish. Steve?
If you ask any of the chief engineers on these cars, they will tell you to a man, the weak link in their program is the transmission. And that is exacerbated here at Sebring because the driver has to be careful. They know where the big bumps are. You don't want to shift there for fear when it comes down, it clobbers that transmission. We've seen transmissions they call bulletproof here in practice go out in 5 laps. The driver's got to take care of that tranny if he's going to win this race.
Well, in the GT battle, it's not only going to be a battle between the manufacturers, but also the tire companies. Now, the Porsches predominantly are on Michelins and Pirellis, but the BMWs here are on these Yokohamas. Now, typically, they have to change tires on every stop because these guys will go about an hour and 15 to an hour and 20. But when we get to the nighttime racing, if they can go a double stint, that will really be a factor because with these rules here, you cannot fuel and replace the tires at the same time. So if you can actually just do the fueling, head out of pit lane, you really save a lot of time in this one.
Well, Calvin, the winners here are few and far between. In the 47 races, a list of just 80 men have been listed as winners, and it's a very exclusive club, and I think a club, frankly, Derek, that those of us who are part of feel very proud to be part of.
Yes, indeed, because when your name is etched in history here, it's there forever. Calvin made a very interesting point. The Chevrolet Corvette teams, I know for a fact, will change tires at every single stop. That means they will have a minimum of 14 full pit stops throughout this race. The Porsches get better fuel consumption. That may be one of their advantages.
Let's go down to Alan in the pits. Alan?
I think we're ready to start this event. Sir?
Drivers, start your engines!
That is Joe Virgil of Exxon, the Superflow manager. You see the Audi there on the pole. The Audi's qualifying first and second. We'll take just a short break as the cars roll out on the warm-up lap and be right back. Welcome back to Sebring. The cars are on the warm-up lap. You see one of our 9 in-car cameras, and we will be able to give you a really close look as time goes on at the track. But meantime, Derek, give us a quick version of this lap.
Well, actually, it's me, Dave, doing it. It's 3.7 miles, 17 turns, and it's absolutely dead square to the compass, north-south. All the straights go either dead east or west or north and south. A lot of typical corners. The hairpin there, very tight. You accelerate out of there through those little chicanes, the Fangio chicane. Cunningham Corner's tough on the brakes. Tower Turn's very tough on the brakes. And, of course, Sunset Bend, very aptly named. Awesome, beautiful, magnificent, but an absolute pain in the you-know-what late in the afternoon.
Starting lineup, gentlemen.
And the starting grid is presented by Dodge, and on the pole, in fact, all front row is the Audi R8. Frank Biela will lead off, joined by Christensen and Pirro. Ronaldo Capello will lead the second car. He's joined by Alboreto and Alan McNish. We spoke to him earlier. Third fastest car led by David Brabham. Magnussen and Raffinel is with him. Johnny O'Connell, K2 and Graf will join them, 2 Panoz cars. Fifth fastest, JJ Leto, Jörg Müller in the BMW. Beside him, teammate led by Bill Oberlin, Mark Gugnon and Steve Soper also in BMWs. Seventh fastest, Martini will lead off that team. Mimo Schiatarella is his teammate, as well as Davide Gaze. They are in the Raffinelli Lola, very potent car. Eighth fastest, Norman Simon, Gunter Blieninger and Mark Simo. Mark, of course, from America, joined by 2 Germans. Ninth fastest, Didier Thez. Lenhard and Baldi in the Doran Special. Beside him, Lagorce, Leitzinger and Wallace in the first of the Cadillacs. 2 more Cadillacs behind him, Van der Poel, Wayne Taylor and Agnelli, who crashed. And Collard, Bernard and Christoph Tinso round out the top 12. David?
In the first Reynard 2000 car, Stefan Johansson with Guy Smith. Next to him is Maxwell and Graham. In the Multimatic Motorsports, that's a Lola, a 98 Lola. Jack Baldwin, an old teammate of mine, is in the Robinson Racing Reynard, a 2000 car. John Field and the Whittington brothers in the Banana Joe's Lola B90, but that's also a 98 car. James Weaver in the with our own Dorsey Schrader. Then we got all the GTS cars. Ron Fellows leads them. Olivier Beretta just a 1/10 of a second behind him. Belloc just a 1/10 of a second behind him in the second team Viper Oreca. And then, of course, David Donahue, son of an old teammate of mine here, in another Viper.
And as you look through the rest of the grid, you see the fastest GT car was Dirk Mueller and Lucas Luhr. That is Dick Barber's car. Bob Wallach is in the other car. He will lead off. However, they went to the paddock with that car number 51, to check the fuel system. We're not sure if they will take the start, but everybody else will. And the key here is to survive. It is so bumpy, lots of surface changes, and an enormous amount of passing. 2 silver Audis lead the 2 Panoz cars, lead the 2 BMWs. Here we go. The pole man, the right side of your screen, he takes control.
Into that turn one, a very, very fast left-hand turn, and it tightens up on the exit. Very wide going in, and then as you look here, you can see how it suddenly narrows up the whole field. 42 cars streaming in there, a magnificent field. The two Audis maintain the lead, followed by two Panoz, somebody locking up there badly as they go into turn 5.
Wow, tire smoke already. We have 14 ex-Formula One drivers in the field today.
And 3 up here.
And 3 in the booth, 17 total. This is down to the hairpin. Stand the thing on its nose down at this reconfigured hairpin. Very, very hard on the brakes.
Frank Biella driving that lead car. Whoa! There goes one of the Lolas off. That's one of the Cadillacs going wide there.
So Frank Biella leads. Capello is second. Audi 1-2. Then we have the two Panoz cars. Oh, here comes the Lola. The potent Loli is the most colourful car on the grid here, the green and red. There's the Cadillacs. Cadillacs off the pace here, not a developed racing car yet. Down through the infield section, you just saw a quick peek at what was a Ferrari, driven by Didier Thays. Now it's got a V10 Judd engine in the car. Middle of your screen, headlights on. Red and white, Didier Thays right there.
Didier Thays, of course, a big winner, comes from Belgium, now lives in Phoenix, from Scottsdale, Arizona. Does very well in all these long distance races, but he doesn't have a hell of a lot of luck.
Uh-oh.
That's one of the GTS Porsches out, so is that Claudio Hurtgen? There's not many GTS Porsches in this field, or is that Zach Brown? Zach Brown maybe, Steve Earle.
And that appears to be Bob Wallach's car just at the bottom of our screen that we mentioned earlier on. He was in the pits for fuel system check. Look at this side by side already. This is the most difficult corner because it's long, long, long and huge G-forces.
And very, very bumpy.
Frank Biella, Audi is second. David Brabham is in third in the Panoz, followed by Johnny O'Connell, who started that car. 2 Audis, 2 Panoz, followed by 2 BMWs.
Yeah, so we're all going here arc style. 2 Audis not pulling away massively, but of course this is a 12-hour race. The BMW hanging on there right in the 43 car, driven by Bill Oberlin, hanging on there to the second of the Panoz. 78 car, Frank Biella. 77 car is driven by Ronaldo Capello at the moment. This is on board with Frank Biella. Frank, of course, an ex-touring car champion of England, been driving for Audi for quite a long time.
The major key that we heard Alan McNish say about these 2 Audis is they have great drivability. Drivability means you can go over the transitions, you can go over the bumps still on the power. We had that in the great Nissan GTP days, and we were successful here. That will be something that Panoz drivers in particular will have to overcome, because they have to physically manhandle the Panoz cars. These cars are much, much, much easier to drive.
They look at actually just watching them from outside. They look as if they handle the bumps better than anybody else here. And as we heard then from one of the drivers before the race, they're not having a problem with the bumps like everybody else.
Came here last year, a bit like Cadillac are this year. Built a car almost as a test mule. Came here, they were off the pace. But I'll tell you, they sure have changed things around this year. In every session, they were just about fastest.
Pulling away very slightly now from the 2 Panoz cars.
The question of how to set your suspension up is critical here at Sebring, as you talk about how rough the track is and how the cars are riding it. Some of the teams would like to set their suspension soft so as to be able to absorb those bumps, but others go for the harder settings in order to keep their ground effect systems working right. But of course, then you take a brutal beating as a driver. It's a difficult choice.
Inside the Olive Garden, Lola, they lost a total of 6 seconds on that last lap alone. 6 seconds.
He must have had a half spin or something. Obviously something went wrong there, being very closely hounded now by the 27 car.
That is started by Didier Thays. That's the Doran Special. So Martini, Piero Martini, ex-Formula One driver. Remember him with the Minardi in particular? had a problem, but this may be one of the sports cars of the future, that new Lola.
There you saw Emmanuel Collard in the Motorola Cadillac. Looked like he was just being passed.
On board with one of the Cadillacs. This is the number 19 Cadillac.
Van der Poel driving the car at the moment. Van der Poel, an ex-Formula 1 driver, and a lot of winning. Let's listen to it. There's that long straight coming into Sunset Bend. Later on this afternoon, the sun will be right in the driver's eyes as they come down that long straight. There's Woo running wide there. There's Didier Taze in the 27 car.
Used to be a Ferrari.
Right behind him is the 36 car of Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson in his new Reynard. The Reynard's not liking the bumps here at all, apparently, but still, Stefan Johansson's giving Didier Taze a lot to think about.
I'll be surprised to see the Reynard last the distance. They have broken so many gearboxes here. At one stage, Johansson jumped in, put the thing in gear. This car here, number 36, put it into gear, and he didn't make it to the end of the pit lane before it blew up. So Stefan Johansson chases down the V. Judd engined ex-Ferrari of Didier Taze as this long, grueling race continues. We're back. We are live at Sebring on Speed Vision. You're inside the Viper. These are the potent cars of the GTS category, currently running first and second. Ron Fellows in the Corvette is running third.
And David Donahue here is, in fact, running a fifth in that class. So, but it's a great view up from the front of that Dodge as he goes under the Coca-Cola bridge there, through the long bend, big bend, down under the next pedestrian bridge, down to the old hairpin. You can see a view of the car from the outside. Very, very fast, these Dodges. 180 odd miles an hour down that long Sunset Straight.
Report, David, of some, there is David, but David, there's a report of a possible loose window on this car. You can see the gear changing. These are one of the hottest cars to race here at Sebring because all enveloped in carbon fiber, which retains the heat, and of course front engine cars, extreme heat.
And right in front of him there was the 3 GTS, that was the Fellows car. So Ron Fellows slipping back here.
The battle we're seeing between the Vipers and the Corvettes raged all the way through the 24 hours of Daytona. We expected to go on, pick up where it's left off. We're now aboard one of the Corvettes. This is Ron Fellows, who had the fastest of the GT times in practice.
Yeah, going to be joined by Chris Neifel and Justin Bell in this car. They were very, very good at Daytona. Ran the 24 hours despite the car being so new. This car, they say, is built around the chassis. It is more of a racing car, whereas the Viper in the same class is built around that massively powerful V10 engine. Alan, you have a comment?
Yes, the Goodyear tire guy just came up to me and he said he'd taken a note of the track temperature, and it was running just under 90 degrees on the track, but something like 25 degrees hotter than that out on the asphalt. So we're talking about a track temperature that could be getting up to 120 degrees, and of course it's still fairly early in the morning here at Sebring. The clouds are overhead, but if it gets warmer, I asked him if it would be a problem, and he said no, and I actually stuck my fingernail into a couple of their tires, and they certainly bring rock-hard tires here for this race. I don't think it'll be a problem.
Olivier Beretta in the 91 car down to the old hairpin. Slowed up a bit these days. As you can see, an exit through a little chicane there. It used to be round a very tight hairpin and then a blast down to the chicane. They've straightened the chicane out just a little bit here as he comes up towards Cunningham Corner, which is his tight right-hander. Fairly tough on the brakes. And they weave through the back of what used to be the old hangars and the buildings. A little left-hand turn, that's Collier curve. And he's coming down now to the tower turn, which is a sharp right-hander. Looks like he's had contact on the left front there with somebody. And a bit of a blast here, down quite a straight bit, but very bumpy down here too. You can see all the patches on the asphalt.
What a success story this has been for Chrysler when they developed this Viper into a racing car. Went to Europe primarily, won 3 FIA championships, I believe, won their class at the Le Mans 24-hour race. Of course, then were mighty in winning the Daytona 24 hours overall, not just their class. They won it overall. But there's the GTS runners, Viper, Corvette, Viper, all in a line down this back straight. Let's now go to the GT battle.
Car number 23. That's Randy Post driving that Porsche. Leading the class, the 5 car right behind him.
That's Dick Barber's car. They have 2 cars in this event. Wallach did start from the paddock, or from the pit lane. He is playing catch-up. Currently, he is in 35th position, about 10th in line in the GT class. But Dirk Mueller and Lohr are running in second place. You see Dick
on board now with Dirk Muller, who's just right behind Randy Post. Randy Post, I worked with him many years ago on some ride and drives. A tremendous young driver. Never had quite the opportunity that he was deserved, there's no doubt about it, but very, very fast.
And that's something you're going to see all day long. Porsche 911s just racing side by side, trying to see who can beat each other because they don't break.
Porsche has the most incredible record here at Sebring of 13 consecutive victories through the 80s. Probably never be broken.
Absolutely staggering performance by Porsche in worldwide racing. It took them a long time to win Le Mans. They didn't win it till 1970 with Richard Atwood in the 917. But since then they've gone on to, whoa, the number 66 car there having a pirouette. Looks like the tire let go. That's Kevin Butler in the Porsche, another GT car. That's at Sunset Bend at the end of that long straight. Did the tire let go or did he just spin it?
It almost looks as if he completely missed the braking zone because he's such a long way from the track.
He is, isn't he? He's obviously got the thing stalled out there somehow.
We can have a look with our replay here. But David, it's strange that he's so far away from the racing line. Obviously, yeah, it looks fine.
Oh,
he got drop kicked.
He got drop kicked off the road into the grass. Wow.
That car is sponsored by buysellorhold.com. I think it might be time to sell.
He got drop kicked.
He did get drop kicked badly.
He was on the outside. He got him whacked, but he's on the way to the pit lane there. You just have a little check and see what's going on.
I mean, it's not like there's not enough room out there. I mean, there's tons of room. And he was lying in 35th spot, was number 66. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. He was lying in 40th spot before he got drop kicked off there.
I don't see any damage. Meanwhile, back up front, Frank Biele in the Audi still continues to lead and is in a comfortable lead after 7 laps. He is 4.2 seconds ahead of the next place car, which is his own teammate in the second Audi, and the Capello, I believe, started that car.
Ronaldo Capello is driving the second car, you're right. And of course, already just 7 laps in, they're into traffic, a lot of traffic. Although the grid this year was actually covered much tighter than normal. There was about 25 seconds covering the grid, which is pretty staggering for a field of this diversity. There's the 43 car.
Yeah, but you notice what was behind him? David Brabham in the Panoz obviously has got himself into trouble somewhere. But Bill Oberlin, who very quickly became the lead BMW at the start of this, is now running in 4th place. Brabham is 5th. Johnny O'Connell has gone up into 3rd place. Calvin, you have a comment on these rear wings?
Yes, I do, Derek. What happened in the technical inspection on earlier in the week, the rear wings on the BMW had a problem. Now, the rule is this piece of paper here simulates the rear wing end plate. The chord of the wing has to fit within this. Now the BMW team ran their wing at this angle to get the downforce in the car, but the rules state that the rear wing end plate has to be parallel to the ground. This meant that they could not get enough rear wing angle into this end plate to create enough downforce on the rear of the car. The team lost about 3 seconds from their testing pace, and they've struggled all weekend to really get enough downforce on the back end of that BMW.
Boy, oh boy, that's the sort of thing you definitely don't want to have happen to you. You do a lot of testing, get the thing all set up, and then somebody comes back and says, oh, by the way, you can't run that wing, it's too high.
Exactly, and there was no way around that rule, and they've struggled to get enough downforce off the front of the car to get the balance. But currently running in 4th position and 6th, the two BMWs, but the Audis are in control. We have a long way to go.
BMW is intensely proud of its motorsports history, but the company actually started out in the airplane business. Then the emphasis moved to motorcycles. Before World War II, BMW was hugely successful in racing and record breaking. Their first big achievement on 4 wheels was a 1-2 in the 1940 Mille Miglia, and through the years they have won in touring cars, Formula One, and endurance racing. The V12 LMR began appearing last year and was immediately successful, winning here at Sebring with J.J. Leto, Jörg Müller, and Tom Christensen. Then triumph at Le Mans with drivers Joe Winkelhock, Pierluigi Martini, and Yannick Dalmas. After Le Mans, BMW continued to compete, winning races in the American Le Mans Series. The company that started out in the aircraft business is flying high once again. So BMW has a total of 2 wins here, the race last year and the race back in 1975, which I was lucky enough to be part of. Quite a heritage.
I don't know whether many people know, but the insignia that BMW uses, the blue and white, is actually came from an aeroplane propeller in rotation.
Yeah, right. Their famous badge. There you see the G loads on the driver's neck there. Look at it going up to nearly 3 Gs one way. Look at that, 2.5 Gs the other way. I mean, that puts a tremendous amount. And Dorsy Schrader was saying at the beginning of the show, your neck muscles really take a pounding here. And most of these drivers, their neck and their head are about the same size.
And the worst corner of all, David, is the very last one, because the corner goes on for so long. It's not a G spike, it's an extended G. On board now with James Weaver, drafted into this team. Usually drives for Rob Dyson, drove at Daytona for him, but was drafted in here to car number 38, which is the Dorsy Schrader Ralph Kellner's car. That was the one, remember, Dorsy told us earlier on, Ralph Kellner's found this so difficult to drive, he had bleeding blisters in less than 10 laps.
That's pretty tough, isn't it? It's pretty tough when you got 12 hours to go. You can see his head shaking around. You can see how bumpy it is there. His head moving around. Obviously, he's leaning into the corners, but obviously taking a lot of punishment there.
This has the potential, though, to be a very potent motor car. It is a Lola. Most people in the paddock are talking about how great this new Lola is. This particular car that we're on board with now also has a factory Porsche engine. You have that type of power and that type of reliability. With the downforce that this Lola seems to appear or have, David, you could be looking really good when they get this thing sorted out.
They could be indeed. Of course, they're using the Porsche engine. The turbo engines, though, have to have a restrictor, and it certainly hasn't been working for them this weekend. They haven't been developing the power they hoped they were going to develop. But as the year progresses, they're probably going to have a better installation and get that power back.
This is the last turn here that goes on. He's in it now. He's still in it. He's still in it. He's still in it. He is still in it. Then he accelerates. Alan?
Yeah, so one of the problems with these new cars is getting them balanced. The Lola Porsche, for instance, produces an awful lot of download at the front. When you look underneath that car, it's very, very trick under there with its Venturi. It's got like a slightly wider than normal Formula One Grand Prix monocoque. So it's slippery. The air can get down the side of the monocoque, producing download. It's also got a full width floor at the front with a flat bottom. They're getting a lot of download out of that. And that's one of the reasons why the drivers are having so much trouble with their arms in this car, because the download at the front is requiring an awful lot of force to keep the car turned into the bend. And what they did, on the front uprights of the car, they backed off the caster. In other words, they tried to make the steering less stiff to turn. Well, they succeeded in doing that slightly, but the car is unstable on the straight. So unfortunately, they just don't have it balanced. I think you know all about that, Sam.
I sure do. The compromise between the amount of caster you run and the steering effort is always critical on any car, but particularly when you've got a rough track like this, it becomes a lot worse.
On board again with Martini in the Olive Garden Lola. Same car as James Weaver is in, except for the engine. This has a V10 Judd engine. More developed. They had more time to run this, only a little bit more. They ran it in Europe for the first day, ran very, very quickly, almost instantaneously.
Very close race there for 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th.
Yeah,
they'll flash across the line in 13th too.
There's the two Cadillacs, the silver Cadillacs. That one there driven by Eric van der Poel.
Oh, gets held up by that GT car going into turn 1. Whoa, swooping through the traffic. It's so difficult for the fast drivers, but it's awfully difficult for the guys being lapped as well, because they can't expect to look in the mirror just all the time. And obviously it just gets 10 times worse when it gets dark.
There's the scary bit, when you have to make your way through. Now remember, the Porsche 911s and the GT and GTS class, they're busy with their own race. They don't always look in their mirrors and know exactly what's going on.
Didier Taze was the one that got left there hanging out on the line to dry there. There's the 19 car of Eric van der Poel.
Now as we watch this battle continue here, let me just introduce you to something that might be fascinating. We're going to link with our viewers today via the internet. So if you go to www.speedvision.com, click onto our email link. We're going to try and respond to you by return mail or on the air right here. We have our computer right here in the booth, so we can get your emails, and we will try and answer them on the air.
Well, Derek, we have one right here from Michael Pearson of Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey, and he asked, with the high attrition common at Sebring, do the Corvettes and Vipers still have a chance even though the prototypes are faster? What do you think, David?
Well, I think that Ron Fellows, you know, the prototype field is deep here, very, very deep. There's a lot of good prototypes, and I would think that at least one or two of them are going to be around at the finish of the race, and I don't think the Corvettes or the Vipers will have a chance for an overall victory here. But I tell you, this is a very, very strange race, and anything could happen.
And you got to be so, so careful. This is Emmanuel Collard in the Dams, the French-run Cadillac team, backed by Motorola. Have a look here, David, though, on the last lap. Got himself into trouble. Here's the black Cadillac on the left of your screen right there. And just watch him stand on the brakes here. Look, 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 look. Gets it sideways as he goes over the transition. And now takes a duck and dive. Wow, you got to be so careful.
Well, of course, the 19 car there, Van der Poel, was stuck behind that GT car, and he pulled out, which certainly gave the Motorola Cadillac something to think about. Look at them, absolutely tied together and still right behind the zero car of de Radiguez in that Olive Garden Lola.
Turbocharged Cadillac Northstar LMP engine. We're going to give you a quick update on all three classes as soon as we come back. Don't go anywhere. We are back live at Speed Vision. You are on board with Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson, car number 36. He is running 7th. We are 14 laps into it. And here's a good situation here where you see the P car so much faster than the GTS car. Just whips out and away it goes.
Well, that
those Vipers are quick at the end of the straight.
They're very quick at the end of the straight, but that does help to answer our first question on the internet there. If they can keep that up for another 8 or 9 hours, they'll be so far ahead that they'd have to have tremendous trouble for the Viper. Here we see a great battle here between the 4-car Corvette and the Viper there.
Still on board with Stefan. They had a lot of trouble with this car. Very little testing.
You can see there how the car is bumping around there.
This is our GTS leader. We did have a report of some damaged bodywork on this number 91 Viper. The number 90.
The left front looks like it's been clipped with something. Olivier Beretta on it. Now lives in Monaco. Just shows how much money these guys are making. Wow, we're living in Monaco instead of Milwaukee.
Yeah, we spoke to Olivier earlier on. He's joined in his car by Carl Wendlinger, Dominic Dupuis. That is the successful team that won at Daytona overall. We're going to hang out here and just watch the Corvette.
There's the first
top of the screen.
Obviously not this 70 car. That is Johnny Molan from England and David Murray. Speed Vision viewers have seen Johnny Molan in the Porsche Cup. There you see the number 3 car of Ron Fellows lying second to the Olivier Beretta car, which has pulled out quite a bit.
On board now with Ron Fellows. Let's just stay here just for a minute, right behind the Viper now, because the Viper got stuck in traffic.
He did get stuck in traffic.
Now we see the drag race down this long back.
Now that's the 93 car, so he must be coming up to lap him.
He may be in trouble. Long back straight, 185 miles an hour down this long back straight, even for the GTS cars. Headlights ablaze, trying to warn the slower GT cars. There's Wallach, 51. Bob Wallach, number 51, we reported earlier he was in the pits for a fuel problem, trying to play catch-up in his particular class. There's the new BMW.
Look at the Viper handle the Porsche in the curves.
And Stefan Johansson is right in the middle of the mix here. This looks like a freeway.
Bob Wallach, of course, the previous winner here, won this race overall in 1985. Now he's down in the GT class, but would love to win that class as well. One of the oldest drivers in the race at 54 years old. Boy, oh boy, that traffic, that's going to get wearing as this day goes. I tell you, it's going to get very, very wearing on these drivers. And that, there goes one of the Cadillacs around the outside of a GT car, followed by the Viper. There's the 4 car, the Corvette, currently lying
on timing and scoring. We show still that the 93 Viper right there is still in 3rd place in the class, yet it appears he's about to lose a lap. Are the Vipers in trouble? Calvin?
No, I just spoke to Hugh de Schornack. He said the problem with the 91 car is minor. The driver has reported no problems driving that car. Now remember, guys, that this team did not compete at the 12-hour last year and the Vet team did. So that may give the Corvette team a bit of an advantage. But Team Orica Viper did run here at the 3-hour, the FIA GT race a couple of years ago. But they're really saying that the maintenance of the car shouldn't be a problem. They have great reliability with the Viper, even with the bumps here at Sebring. But they're really not got a good setup on the car. I spoke to Tommy Artie, he said they're still running a little stiff in the setup, and that's really going to beat the drivers up as they go on. Alan, a little further down the pit lane with an Audi story.
Yes, I've just heard from the Audi team that in fact their 2 drivers radioed in to say that they're not totally happy with the Audis over the bumps. Doing something in qualifying, setting a fast lap is one thing, but as this race progresses, and don't forget, we've told everybody how grueling it is for the cars and the drivers, the Audi drivers are now just a little bit concerned. The bumps may be taking their toll, and that, of course, will be playing right into the Panoz's hand, just as we heard David Bradman say. They're hanging right in there. There's the slightest problem with those Audis. Those Panoz's are going to be in there.
And Johnny O'Connell is hooked right on the back of the number 77 Audi. The number 77 Audi was started by Capello, but Johnny O'Connell has reeled him in. He is now stuck right to the back of him. The Panoz car, we know, is extremely difficult to drive. They will not do many double stints in that car, but O'Connell looks good.
But of course it has that big Ford V8 engine, so it's got lots of torque, very drivable car. Although we did hear nasty rumours of head gasket problems during qualifying and practice. Let's hope not, because obviously a 12-hour race is not the sort of race you want to go into having those problems going in. But look at him hanging on to that Audi just right at the moment. Johnny O'Connell, a great driver too, a little bit underrated, I think.
There's the lead car.
Nevertheless found himself a good niche in this Panoz team.
So we just saw our lead car go out at the bottom of the screen. That is an 8.9 second lead, which in a 12-hour race, Sam, is nothing.
it's nothing at all at this point. Watch them in this turn here, which is at the end of the back straight and starts up the pit straight. This is a very rough turn, and it's a real indicator of how a car, you see that there? They're handling over that part. And the Audi, I had noticed before, after all our talk about how smooth they were, they looked pretty like a buckboard to me.
And David Brabham has got around JJ Leto in the 42 car and is now making ground on the 43 car, which is being driven at the moment by Bill Oberlin.
You know,
here he goes, right up to him.
I wonder if sitting as far back as the Panoz men do in the car, whether the shocks are transmitted more directly to them. Yeah, I know in the old front engine cars, you'd sit way back like that and you really felt the bumps and everything, and it was better to be in a mid-engine car from a driving standpoint. You should watch for that.
This is the car, Sam, that Mario Andretti is set to drive at the Le Mans 24-hour race. As we go on board again, the Olive Garden Lola, Frank Biela, and the second Audi, first and second.
The Exxon Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is sponsored by the Olive Garden. When you're here, your family. By Pirelli and your local Pirelli retailer. And by Ray Bestis. For quality and safety, ask for Ray Bestis, the best in brakes.
We are back and we are live, and this is a good fight early in this race. Early in the race, the two BMWs now split by one of the Panoz cars. That is David Brabham, who is now 5th. Oberlin ahead of him is in 4th. JJ Leto right behind him. Traffic.
Opened up a little bit of a gap on that lap, did JJ Leto. This is that last turn. Just look at this car. Boom, 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 boom. Boy, it's bumpy right there on the apex. It is tough on the drivers. And of course, very tough on the cars. As Steve said earlier on in the show, transmissions here take a tremendous pounding. Drive shafts, the drivetrain generally, as these tires, which of course have got tremendous grip, scrabble for grip going over those bumps, with all that torque and horsepower going through them, it plays absolute havoc with the drive shaft. And of course, you do have to pick your shifting points to try and shift, preferably when the car's up in the air.
But a good battle for 5th, and the Panoz right in the middle of it in what is a fascinating car. Calvin?
Well, it really is, Derek. They made some minor changes over the winter period. They actually stiffened up the tub considerably and really lowered the fuel cell, which they think will really help them over the course and the stint of one of the fuel loads. From start to finish of the fuel load, the car should be much more consistent. Also, we see the brain trust behind the Panoz team looking at real-time telemetry. They're able to read all of the temperatures that are going on with the engines right now, and engines have been a concern this week. They've made a big change over the winter. They had Yates motors last year. They have their own power group now called the Land Power Products. It's really a joint venture between Dom Panoz and Zytec, and it really means that there's a lot of unknowns here at the end of this first race of the 2000 season.
A lot of unknowns, Calvin, and the main key is reliability. We heard Alan tell us earlier on, to finish first, you first have to finish.
Derek, we are receiving all sorts of emails, very encouraging. Over 60, I think, have come in just so far. We have one here from Henrique Pinzon. How much of the original course remains today? I think the answer there is about half, but in terms of the character, 100%. This place feels the same way it used to feel 30, 40, almost 50 years ago.
Have a look at right and left of your screen here. It's still got the old tire barriers that they had all those years ago. Have a look at the telemetry here, boys. What we're going to do here is show you on board the Olive Garden car acceleration and deceleration Gs. Speed is on your left and the G loading is on the right. Now pay attention to how severe the G's suddenly go under braking. Here's acceleration. The speed quickly goes up. Oh, look, above 100 miles an hour, 120, 34. Look how quickly it builds.
And look how quickly it comes off when he puts the brakes on. Modern brakes on modern race cars. I mean, the size of the brakes down there are just staggering, and they've got those huge carbon fiber discs and of course pads, and they have amazing stopping power.
Now we're going to take you all the way through this S's. We're going to take you down the long straight so you'll see how the horsepower builds, how the speed builds. on board this Lola.
And you saw there how the Lola whistled by that number 4 GTS car. That's where these guys gain a tremendous amount. Hundreds of pounds lighter, much bigger brakes and tires, and they just whistled by in there on that braking. Now on that long, long Ullman straight. This is one of the original parts for it, Eric.
Yep. And see, and then suddenly it goes about 1.5 Gs. And look at the G load, look at the sustained G, look, see, still there, still there. Now it drops off. That's the neck breaker for the driver.
Just briefly there, it went to 1.9 Gs, right in the middle of that corner.
Corvette's in, Ron Fellows is in. Yes, there is a driver change.
This could be a scheduled stop.
Ron Fellows, that car is so hot, they will also change tires. Remember, the Le Mans rules state you can do nothing on the car until you have it fueled, and then you work on the rest of the car.
Which adds up to a very leisurely appearing pit stop, even though, of course,
the guy ready there with the right front, you can see him bending down. He's got his air hammer in his hand, and as soon as the fuel rig is disconnected, he'll be able to start taking it. There he goes. Start to do the tires now, so it does make for some long, long stops.
Sorry, David. Chris Neifel is going to jump in. Justin Bell will go in for the next stint.
Chris Neifel getting into the car. He is one of the tallest men ever to drive a car. It has handicapped his career a little bit, I think, simply because he can't really drive the single-seaters, and he is a tremendous driver of great, great talent.
Calvin?
Well, this is unscheduled, guys. The GTS car should certainly go 60 minutes on a fuel load, so this is very early. We're going to try and get a word here with Ron Fellows in a moment when he comes back to the pit wall. The pit crew really didn't want to give much away there as to why he's in. I said, is it a handling problem because Ron fell back early? They said no, but obviously something's amiss. Let's try and talk to Ron. Ron, you seem to be in a little early, mate.
Yeah, we're just slipping and sliding. I'm not sure why. The track's not anything like when we qualified. We're doing the best we can. It's a long race yet. We'll play with tire pressures and get it right.
Are you able to change tire compounds for Chris to go out now, or did you stick on the same rubber?
Just a set of stickers, same compound.
Okay, guys, there you hear the story. Struggling a little bit for grip.
Great job, Calvin, right there with Ron Fellows. That was a Panoz car that we saw. David Brabham has stayed in the car. He will do a double stint right off the bat.
He was running 5th when he came in, so that would have dropped him down the leaderboard quite a bit. So David Brabham being pretty tough here, doing 2 stints.
And usually we have the P cars in first, then the GTS, then the GT. Now to have Ron Fellows come in a couple of laps early to say it's slipping and sliding, David, that means the tires
must have been slipping and sliding very, very badly. And of course he's talking about changing the tire pressures. They're obviously going to have to do something, because I'm assuming that everybody's slipping and sliding around out there today.
And the Corvettes were going to make a minimum of 14 pit stops. If they cut these stints short by 5 or 6 or 7, nice pass by the Panoz, and he waves, thank you. But if they cut these stints short by 5 or 6 or 7 laps, they can make a lot more stops. 74 is in.
That's Jack Baldwin, my old teammate, Jack Baldwin. He and I drove in some long distance races. Boy, don't say, has he stalled it?
And
or is he just waiting for the traffic to go by?
One of the very best Trans Am drivers in the business.
In fact, all ex-Trans Am drivers in this car with Robinson and Irv Hare, George Robinson. Hopefully he's kept this thing running. It doesn't look like it, David.
No, it doesn't, does it?
When you look around the cockpit, you're looking for switches and levers to pull to see can you put it back together, but another Cadillac is in.
That's the 9 car. That's one being driven by Frank Lagos. The 19 car we just saw being passed by David Brabham on his way out of the pits. David Brabham whistled down the inside of that 19 car, the number 9, coming in now. So all the GT, all the P cars coming in for their stops at this stage of the game, with 23 laps completed.
Double stint. Double stint. Lagos appears as if he will stay in. This is Van der Poel, Eric Van der Poel,
who had such a bad crash at Le Mans. It's good to see him back in a prototype.
He's motioning with his head as if he's answering whatever question the crew is asking him as he rolls down here. Went a little bit too far.
Well, overshot the pits there. Oh, golly, I tell you, you think these races are long, 12 hours, you've got all the time in the world, but I'll tell you what, you've still got to get everything right. You've only got to look at last year's finish, just a few seconds to make these races. You've got to make it stick. In the 1970 race, where Mario won by just a few seconds.
Critical. You stand still here for long periods and you will put an extra burden, because then you have to drive the thing harder. Remember, the old days, you'd race for a couple of hours, you'd cruise as best you can when the Corvettes is off. Nowadays it's a 12-hour sprint. Is this just after the pit stop? Is that car number 3? Yes, it is. Yeah. It's Chris Neifel on his outlap on cold tires, gets the thing wrong and throws it into the boondocks. Hopefully without too much damage. Without too much damage, hopefully. Gets a look of the lead car. Frank Biela puts another lap on him. Christensen and Pirro will join Biela in that lead car. But car number 3, driven by Chris Neifel, got himself in trouble. Maybe he got away with it. Welcome back, live here on Speed Vision, an unprecedented 13 hours of coverage of the Exxon Superflow 12 hours of Sebring. It is being led and somewhat, oh, big spinner right in front of Frank Biela. Right in front of the leader. I think that's Dorsey Schrader's car. It is. That's Kellner's. Oh. Is that Kellner's?
Ralph Kellner's. It's...
You know what? I think that's Dorsey.
Uh-oh, Dorsey.
A little look at the color scheme in that helmet. On board now. But that is our man Dorsey Schrader. Let's have a little look at a replay. Dorsey just jumps in. The tires are cold. He doesn't make it around the first lap. But look at this here. Puts the power on right in front of our leader, Frank Biela. Dorsey gets it off. And doesn't manage to hit the wall. Wow, that's dodge a bullet. That is dodge a bullet time. Well, I'm sure we'll get to ask Dorsey about that later on.
We certainly will. Olivier Beretta in the pits there. No doubt they'll have a look at that slight damage to the left front fender.
No, that happened very early. In the first lap or two, that damage did happen.
You can see all those little chin spoilers on the front of the car. That's one of the things you've got to be so careful of. The aerodynamics on these cars are so critical. And they have all those little chin spoilers, which are absolutely, of course, just so vulnerable with a lot of traffic around like we have today.
He was running in 15th place before he came in, which was 3rd of the GTS cars. Now, there's the new BMW M3. So it is Harum Scarum time right now, because we have every class coming down the pit lane at the same time.
The number 6 car was lying in 32nd spot when it pitted. And their teammate, the number 10 car, driven by P.D. Cunningham, was in 22nd spot. So the old car so far quicker than the new one from Prototype Technology Group and BMW.
The leading. You know what? The other car must be in trouble. They were just in. They did one lap and they're back in again. Here's on board with Dorsey. Dave, you think too much power too soon?
Well, where is he? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just got on the power a little bit too soon. Split up onto that grass and just did not quite hit that guardrail. What a lucky one.
You know what? He just spun again. He is off the road again.
Wow, Dorsey, what are you doing?
Twice in less than 2 laps. This car has been a handful since they built it. A lot of rear suspension problems.
Boy, what a lousy place to be stuck. Look at that. Gosh, I hope they all got, flag signals down there.
Porsche engine in this car, the B2K Lola. Enormous amounts of downforce, but the car just not sorted. You can't get reverse either. Calvin?
Bill Aublin is in the number 43 BMW. He's really been strutting his stuff. He knows Sebring very well. He was leading his teammate, the flying field JJ Lato, on the last few laps. They've been running strong in the top 3. They have tyres at the ready. The Michelin guys did a quick inspection, said no problem, fired it up, and he's out of here. Alan, news further down pit lane.
Yes, it's just about the same story here in the Audi pit. Car number 77 has just oversteered its way magnificently out the pits. There was no driver change in that car. They did exactly the same thing. They wheeled out the Michelin wheels and tires. just in case they needed them. They didn't need them. They put the fuel on board. The driver drank about a litre of fluid in about 2 seconds flat, and out he shot. No problems at all.
GTS leader.
That's the number 4 Corvette coming in after the number 3 car made that stop. Fellows complaining about the handling. I wonder if these drivers are feeling the same problems with their car, because the Viper's now all in front of these Corvettes.
Andy Pilgrim started in this car. He stalled? No. Back to Dorsy. Dorsy Schrader. Now he's had 2 spins. Let's have a look at his second one, David.
While we were in the middle of talking about his first spin in slow, he went and did it again. Dorsy's in trouble when he comes up to this booth. Turns.
What happened? Something let go on the rear. It broke the bodywork. Did a tire blow?
Wow, no, it looked like a big lump of tire. That's at the hairpin. Here he is coming into the hairpin. There's the new hotel on the left. Here's the hairpin on the right. There's the old hairpin straight on. Swings in here, and just at this point, something came off that right rear, and round he went. Wow.
Michelin tires on that car. Wow, look at that chunk of rubber.
The 42 car leading JJ Leto in the car with the BMW V12 engine vehicle. He's not going to change either.
Calvin?
Well, JJ Leto, they complete the stop, but the same thing as with the 43 car. They checked tires, gave him the okay. But there's a problem at the back of the car. One of the mechanics is under the back there. I'm not sure if they can't fire the engine. They've told JJ just to hold it there, so definitely a problem towards the back end of this machine. The crew is underneath the back. They haven't got the back off, but certainly a problem there. Underneath the left rear, it looks like they've got some baling wire on there. They're obviously trying to strap something up. It looks like the rear underwing has come loose. They certainly noticed that when they were checking the tires, and they've determined they really need to hold that up so it doesn't drag. Quick fix is really loose. Valuable seconds here in the pits, guys.
So there you have a very, very high-tech car with all the computer chips in history and everything else, and they're holding it together now with wire, and we're only an hour into this.
And that is a typical Sebring problem. Something that just flat shook loose and now has to be wired up in an impromptu way.
We saw Dorsey Schrader's car made its way back to the pits. He knew there was something wrong. He came in just as the BMW left. But don't be surprised to see lots of this baling wire and duct tape used as this race at Sebring goes on. This is the new M3.
That's in for the second time too. They were in just a few moments ago.
Brake troubles, we hear.
Now we saw that the other day. You remember we were watching on the straight. This is the guy that was pumping his brakes going into the Sunset Bend when we were watching on Friday.
Yes.
And they obviously got the same problem. Calvin?
Boris, what's the problem with the new M3, mate?
I think we just have a little teething problem. I mean, these guys did a great job doing this car, but they got a little brake problem we got to work out. So,
seems like you're having brake problems right now.
We're just trying to, I can't really hear what you're saying, but we're checking the brakes, and we're just going to kind of use it as a 12-hour test to get our new car ready for Charlotte.
This car was literally brand new when it rolled here this week, guys. The paint was still wet on the car as they pulled it off the transporter, so this is just a test session.
Well, Stephen Ostrander wanted to see more of the BMW M3, the debut of this new model, and so Stephen, I hope you're pleased with that report. Brake problems, teething problems, they'll get it right.
Alan, tell us what's going on with Dorsey.
Well, I'm down here with Dorsey's car, and basically they're examining the back end. Now, there's a fairly complicated rear suspension here, which I'm having a good look at. And there's a link that comes from the bottom of the upright via the springs, and basically the lock nuts had come undone. Now, that's got, you can see it right now, there's a left thread and a right thread on that little threaded stud there, and that adjusts the length of that link that the mechanic's got his hand on. He's checking the drive shafts out to make sure those are not wobbling around. Everything looks okay, but that lock nut had actually come undone, and I rather think that's probably what caused Dorsey's second off, because obviously if the back end of the car lets go on you in a bit of a rush, not much you can do, but nothing looks damaged. Everything looks like they can just patch it up and keep going, and really that's what this team is trying to do here, is just to keep this car out there, keep it going, and learn all they can. They're going to change the rear wheels now just as a precaution. Carbon fiber brakes look fine to me. There they are sticking out there with their carbon pads in. And so really, this is all a learning curve for this team. They're practicing their pit work, then they're just learning about this car. Don't forget, it's brand new. This car was still in the autoclave back at Lola's in Huntingdon 3 weeks ago. So now they've got it all zipped up. They'll put the back on it, and out he'll go again. Sam?
Alan, just to continue with that thought, Champion Racing were going to withdraw this entry, and Dorsey convinced them to run it as a test session, and I think it was a very, very wise decision.
There's the 36 car of Stefan Johansson being followed by the leader. That's Frank Miller still leading this race under that incredibly bumpy Sunset Bend, coming up, swooping up behind the 36 car, about to put him a lap down.
But you know, we did see something mechanical wrong with that car when Dorsey had that second spin. As we go to break, we're going to show it to you again in slow motion. Dorsey Schrader, watch the bodywork, the left rear bodywork as it breaks up. Right there, mechanical problems. He's on his way to the grass. Back live at Speed Vision's coverage of the Exxon Superflow 12 Hours of Sebring. We have 9 onboard cameras. This is the number 6 BMW, which is in trouble. It is major league trouble. Boris said is in it. The brake troubles, David, continue. Watch this.
He was talking about those brake troubles, and here you see it. Foot just jammed on the floor. Nothing much happening. Spins around at that hairpin. Onto the grass. Doesn't appear to do any damage. But he certainly seems to be going at slightly reduced speed.
Now we go on board. You'll see. So Boris said, did double duty this weekend with practice and qualifying in the Trans Am event that ran yesterday.
Pulling over to the right hand side of the road here, obviously cruising down the straightaway here to come back into the pits and have another look at the car.
'92 Viper we're on board with now. Tommy Archer has got into the car, so he takes over for the double stint. David Donahue started the race in that number 92. He is hot and sweaty, and he's in the pit lane.
David, the conditions are brutal here at Sebring. I know you talked about cockpit temperatures in excess of 150 degrees. How was the opening stint for you?
Well, it wasn't as good as we'd hoped. You know, we're running according to a plan, and we had a big understeer going into the corners, pretty much all through turn 1, and then we snapped a loose coming off the corners with oversteer. So we're running a little bit of handling condition, which we didn't have yesterday. The track has changed quite a bit, and we've changed some components on the cars last minute. But fortunately, it didn't get a whole lot worse while we were out there. The Michelin tires hold up really well.
Being a 12-hour event, how many changes can you make to the car during this event? Tire compounds and one tire pressure, anything else you can do with the machine?
You can make some modest aero changes, and really not a whole lot. It really depends if you get yellow flags and how much time you have to spend in the pits. You know, lately with the Corvette competition and the Vipers, we pretty much have to go pretty hard from the get-go, so there's not much twiddling your thumbs thinking about what to do. You just got to keep going, going, going.
Because of the pace of the race, do you anticipate just doing single stints to keep a fresh driver in all of the time?
Yeah, I think, because even with the fresh air system in the helmet, it's really hot in the car, and it's hard to get fresh air to breathe, let alone to, you know, kind of cool yourself off. Plus, we don't have to stay up 24 hours, so it's not like someone's got to go get a couple hours of sleep.
Okay, well, they came off a huge weekend at Daytona, winning overall there. But as you know, the last win was not going to count here at Sebring. They've got to do it all again.
The 92 car takes the number 3 car. Tommy Archer goes down the inside there as they go through the chicane. And of course, they were just in the middle of being lapped there by the 2 of the leading cars. So tremendous amount of traffic there and a lot of skill and judgment required. And the Viper 92 has just taken away the 17th spot from the number 3 car, which puts them 5th in the GTS class.
Yeah, so that was a battle for position. Remember, Chris Neifel is in that Corvette. Had a bit of trouble when he jumped in earlier. But Tommy Archer, who incidentally is the Speed Vision GT champion in that Viper. The BMs are off.
One of the BMs is off. That's up at that Cunningham curve.
That was the 5th place car. 5th place car, JJ Leto, who stayed in the car. There
Whoa, going wide there too.
I've got a major league trouble you can get yourself into with a simple spin and get wrapped up or clipped by somebody trying to go by.
I wonder if he's got that. Now, they didn't change the tyres on these cars. These cars are Michelin shod. They didn't change that tyre. I wonder if he's got a problem of some sort with his left side tyres.
We have seen a lot of cars off the road in a 12-hour race, only 33 laps old. I mean, that's most strange.
It's going to be an awful lot. You can see that rubber as it rolls up there down at Sunset Bend and all the other curves. As the day wears on, that stuff is going to get very deep, and you just can't afford to go offline and get into it. There again, showing how bumpy it is around that Sunset Bend. Obviously not coming in, so he doesn't feel there's a problem with the car.
That long last bend reminds me of one of the turns in Milwaukee, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit, yeah.
You see the two Audis still running first and second. One BMW led by Bill Arbel in his third. You look down through the full list here. The two Panoz cars still run together. JJ Leto is still in the top six. We're going to run through everybody on the field here for you. We have the Cadillacs. They are still out there. Frank Lagorce is seventh. Johansson, who's doing a good job in that brand new Reynard car, is still running eighth as you look down through the rest of it. Norm Simon, you see him. Norm Simon started that P car, the O2, running last at the moment in the pole car. He's been in trouble many times. Both BMs in at the same time.
Wow. And both of them having a problem. The number 10 car, the older one, the E36, jacked up. Obviously has a problem with it as well. It's been quicker all weekend than its new car, but they've obviously got a problem now. Underneath, looks like something to do with the axle or the drive line there.
I'm not sure we could get closer with our camera. Great pictures here of the mechanics earning their work, earning their pay. They may do this all day long, but Frank Biela in the Audi continues unscathed while people seem to spin and get themselves in all sorts of trouble in a 12-hour race that's only 34 laps old. We'll be back.
Welcome back to Speed Vision's coverage of the 12 hours at Sebring. We are just over an hour into this race. We predicted a rough course. It has been rough. We predicted trouble for many of the cars. We have seen many of the cars in trouble already, including cars from Audi and BMW, and trouble there with one of the vets early on, and the Viper. Everybody seems to be getting back on the course. However, no one out terminally yet, but 11 hours to go, and we are going to see a great deal of action. An exchange of position, Derek.
Yes, indeed. David Brabham has just hounded Bill Arbel in the BMW for the last 20 laps or so, and finally squeezes past him.
Ooh, and a bit of traffic there going around the outside of that.
Yikes, look at the line
that GT car. It's the 89 car of Stan Waddles.
Actually, Stan isn't here. Stan pulled out before the start of this event, but Jim McCormick and Dave Dullum will be in that car. And Bill Oberlin backs right off and takes his time before he makes that move. But David Brabham now takes P3. He is the first Panoz behind the two Audis.
And is he pulling away a little bit there? Looks like it. Jack Baldwin's number 74 car just went out of the picture, so they're back in after that spin, and he obviously stalled it, and the tow truck had to come and fetch him back. 43 car still being driven by Bill Oberlin, the number 1 car, David Brabham there, swoops through Sunset Bend, definitely pulling away from that BMW now.
I'm really curious for our pit people to talk to one of the Panoz drivers after they do a double stint, or after they do their second double stint, just to see how the physical effort is in trying to keep up this pace. These are no longer long distance races, they are long sprint races.
They're unbelievable. I mean, in the old days you'd come here and you'd run 10 seconds off the pace for the entire 12 hours to make sure that you finished. These days these guys run almost up to qualifying speeds for the entire 12 hours. Terribly tough on the driver and then unbelievably tough on the cars, and a great testament to modern engineering, just how reliable these cars are.
As we watch Bill Oberlin, we're going to take a little peek at our Trackus BMW Motorsports G-force meter. Again, this is lateral, so we're going to measure side to side. In the braking zone, about 1.5 to 2, and the acceleration.
David Brabham got held up there a little bit.
Again, around the traffic. Got to be so careful. Just a touch of the brakes there. This is one of the sections changed on the racetrack. This very fast S is after this dog leg. Right here, it goes right, left, right. Right, left, right.
Then out onto that big, long back straight, the Ullman straight. Here you see it. Very long, very fast, and very original. One of our email questions was, how much of the track's left? Well, that's part of it. There's the number 23 car.
Our GT leader, Bruno Lambert, Randy Popes, and Mike Conti. Calvin, you there?
Randy started this stint, Derek. He's jumping out. It's going to be Bruno Lambert jumping in. The crew goes to work. They're expecting fuel and tires. There's a problem here with the fueling. He's got a big problem with the front end of the fueler. One of the springs, which actually makes the fueling rig come back out, it come disconnected. He had to undo that, tear it off. Lost valuable seconds there. As you can see, the crew waits while the fuel has to go in. This should take about 28 to 30 seconds, and then they'll go to work on the rest of the car. Meanwhile, Randy and Bruno are working on their driver change. Crew stands by, fire extinguisher at the ready. Looks pretty routine, other than that minor problem at the beginning of this one, guys.
No other work on the car, you can see, until they finish that fueling. Boy, that is frustrating.
Terribly frustrating.
And that is one of the Le Mans rules at the American Le Mans series.
Oh my gosh, look at that fuel everywhere.
Calvin, are you anywhere near that?
Guys,
there is fuel
that was
everywhere.
the spring problem. The spring that broke off on that refueling rig then created a problem when he came back out. It didn't shut the valve off, so when he pulled out, he was still pumping gas and went everywhere. And the concern, of course, is the heat of the engine. Fortunately, in the Porsche, it was in the back end of the car. If this had been a front engine car, we could have had a fire here in pit lane.
Boy, I think we definitely had a fire there. And we're still not out of the woods yet, because all that vapor will be getting into the cabin of the car and under the floor. And, nasty. Very unpleasant.
Frank Lagorce in this Cadillac. This is the number 9 car. The number 9 car. Huge development program on this North Star LMP.
Getting through traffic.
Wow,
there.
look, see the slide? See the slide at the apex?
Well, that's what Ron Fellows was saying. The thing is slipping and sliding all around.
Oh, he waves. See, he waves his fist.
Yeah, that was not a friendly wave in the old style of Sterling Moss, who used to get off a sort of grave wave that suggested he was carrying mail for the Queen or something, and you just assisted in a wonderful cause by getting out of the way.
That was the 09 car, the 9 car was passing. That's Zach Brown, Steve Earle, and Manfred Juarez from Austria.
So the Cadillac is running in 7th place. This car is built by Riley and Scott in Indianapolis. They have a complete separate race shop they set up to build and develop these cars. And of course, as soon as they race at Daytona, DAMS, the French-run team, took delivery of one of those cars. So now there are 3 Cadillacs. But listen, let's have a look at that friendly wave. This is Frank Lagorce, remember. He just got it sideways at the apex, David, and he's not too impressed. Watch. Yeah, even in French, I don't think that's too friendly.
I think that's French for look at your mirrors, sunshine.
It is.
Say, we have received so far with this race, just a little over an hour in, more than 230 emails, which is a fantastic response. We thank you all very much. We're going to try to keep up as much as we possibly can and be guided by your suggestions. But there's just so much going on out here.
A tremendous amount of action going on as these 2 Audi R8s rush through the field. Boy, you can see that car bouncing around through that turn 1 there. Great rear shot of the car there. Swings into that tight left-hand turn 3, a bit of a right and left, then quite a tight left here. Hard on the gas all the way now here as you pick up speed and come into Big Bend. This long right-hander which takes you down to the hairpin.
One of the emails that we have received was from Bill in Ohio, and he says, when did Cadillac decide to get into this type of racing? Well, Bill, we have that answered comprehensively, and we will get to it the minute we come back. See the standings. Stay with us. We'll be back. 50 years ago, millionaire sportsman Briggs Cunningham wanted to win Le Mans in an American car. He began his quest with a stock, factory-fresh V8 Cadillac. Cunningham's team also took along a radical new weapon, a rebodied Cadillac Roadster the French named Le Monstre. Believe it or not, this was designed by an aerodynamicist. Even though Cadillacs made a big impression, it was to be 50 years before that manufacturer would return to Le Mans. Their tune-up program, which continues here today at Sebring, began at Daytona, where the new machines made their debut. Although they were fast, and a Cadillac Northstar LMP actually led the race for a while, the inevitable problems of introducing new cars and new gearboxes in a 24-hour race eventually took its toll. Perhaps the time has come to dust off Le Monstre. Derek, I don't know how Le Monstre would do here at Sebring, but it would be a thrill to see that old thing run again.
No, it would be a thrill.
Aerodynamics have made some progress in half a century.
It's a thrill to see these Cadillacs running too, because ever since I've been racing in this country, back in 1969 I started here, and GM had a very strict non-racing sort of program, and it's great to see them breaking those barriers with the Cadillacs here in the prototype, of course, in the Corvettes, in the GTS. I mean, it's fantastic to see such a big effort from General Motors. There's that BMW, the number 6 car, still going very slowly now. Got a major problem.
And the leader in the GT category, right before that, the BMW's in trouble again. This is Hans Stuck, has taken over from Boris said. This car has suffered a myriad of braking problems. This is the car that BMW want to take the GT fight straight to the Porsche 911.
And the Porsche 911 that's doing the best here, of course, is the one driven by Randy Post, who just had that pit stop with the fuel problem.
Hans Stuck, one of the four three-time winners here at the track, along with Mario Andretti, Phil Hill, and Olivier Jean-Demier.
Randy Post did the opening stint in this car, and I believe he is standing by.
Randy, it looked like you had a great run there with the opening stint. How's the car handling? We hear about a lot of tire problems up and down pit lane. How about your Porsche?
The Michelin tires held up very well. My Alex Job Racing crew, they're smart. They're one of the only teams that ran one of these 911 GT3Rs last year. They won the championship. I'm very fortunate to be on board with Cranium, the game for your whole brain, which is what this race is like. It's a game for your whole brain. I love it. I'm hot. It's hot out there. I think it's this Florida humidity.
BMWs have certainly hit trouble early. It looks like it's going to be a battle between you and the other Porsches. Who's going to give you the most trouble?
Well, obviously the Dick Barber Racing Porsche is probably our strongest competition. The 07 Red Bull car. But I think that Alex Job, well, I know he won this race last year. I finished second. The car is beautiful. The Michelin seem to be able to take the heat. It's a tire race.
You had a big lead at Daytona, then you hit problems. Do you think you've got those out of the way?
Oh yeah, that's all solved. This is a brand new Porsche racing model, and things don't sit still at Porsche. The car is ready.
These guys are pretty confident. Alan?
Yeah, and down here, Cadillac have just had a pit stop. There's a little bit of fuel running out the back over the overflow. Eric van der Poel stayed on board. It was just a routine stop. They put the fuel in, then got the car up in the air, and they changed the Michelin tires, because if you look at this one here, you can see why. That tire definitely suffered dramatically. That's what can happen here at Sebring. A tire can just decide it's had enough and let go. But Eric van der Poel's gone out in that Cadillac, and I don't think there's going to be any more problems with it. It didn't do any damage to the suspension.
Yeah, but his only problem now is he is going to do almost 3 full stints, because they didn't expect that. So Van der Poel, they would have stuck fuel and tires on that car. He will do almost 3 stints, and it is getting warmer. When we come back, we are going to be joined by Mr. Len Hunt, Vice President of Audi North America, to talk a little bit about their racing program.
welcome back. This is a highlight package from hour number 1. At the start, nice and clean, the two Audis dominant. Frank Biela takes the lead. Here is part of the traffic jam. Here's one of the problems. Chris Neifel takes over in the lead Corvette, and he promptly goes off the road on cold tires. Then one of the Audis came in. This is Frank Biela, the leading car, no tires. Dorsey Schrader gets into the champion car and sends it off into the boondocks. He wasn't finished there. Mechanical trouble here in the hairpin, and he goes off again. Then the BMW M3 suffers brake troubles. Boris said goes backwards off the road. They go back to the pits. They are still working on the brake system on that car. We hear one of the Panoz cars is now in the pits, may be in trouble. Calvin?
Problems on this car. I just spoke to Johnny O'Connell briefly as he jumped out. It's now the Japanese driver, Kato, in there. They've got gearbox problems. They're not getting full throttle. They're pulling off the hood right now. Front engine car here, the Panoz. They're going to try and fix that. They're really losing a lot of power out there. Johnny said it's not a question of what's going right, it's what's going wrong. Everything is wrong with this car, so not a good start to a 12-hour event. The team are going to work. They're asking the driver to put his foot all the way down. This is a lengthy driver change. He's a little shorter than the other guys, so they have to put an insert in as well before he can hop into the car, so that took some time. But right now, they do not have full throttle on this machine, cost them valuable time down the long Sebring straightaways.
As we look at these pictures, Calvin, you can see the two air restrictors on top of the engine here. All these engines are, in fact, restricted. They can make a lot more horsepower, but the restrictors are a way to try and keep the engine builds down. They can be enormous because you can't unlearn what you already know. And when you go to Formula One technology, which is available to everybody with a checkbook, you can spend a lot of money.
One of the questions we had on email was what is the size variety and horsepower variety out here? Well, one of the smallest engines, a 2.6 litre turbocharged engine in the Multimatic car, a Lola. The biggest engine here is the Viper, which is just under 8 litres, normally aspirated, but they're all restricted one way or another to try and make the horsepower as near even as possible. And somebody who should know about horsepower, on the leading car here, the number 78 car of Frank Biela, is Len Hunt, president of North America, Audi North America. Len, how much horsepower are these cars giving?
Well, it's 600 plus.
And Frank Biela and you, of course, go back a long way because you used to run Audi UK.
I did.
You won the British Touring Car Championship for you.
Yeah, we came into touring cars in '96 and literally won the whole thing, drivers, team and championship. And Frank was our team champion, yeah.
So you're obviously pretty keen on racing as a way of promoting your product, and you're going to do the same thing here in the States?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to me for those lovely Group C days back in the 80s when I was with Jaguar. And, you know, it was strange watching Andy Wallace here with Cadillac, because, of course, he was in that wonderful 88 Le Mans victory with Dumfries. And so, yeah, it's part of me. And we saw... Yeah.
Why would you choose this type of racing over a sort of more sedan type of racing here in the States?
Well, I think one of the things we do as we build our image in the States is we want an opportunity to showcase our technology. And, you know, with the supercharged, the turbocharged V8s here and the, you know, the racing in this series now getting more and more technological, we think it's a terrific opportunity for us to, you know, come back.
Do you use your factory engineers? I mean, obviously the factory engineers from Germany are very much involved in this car. Are you going to use a lot of the stuff you learn here, carbon fiber technology, the braking, and obviously the power unit? Is that stuff going to find its way to a road car?
Yeah, absolutely. The technology you see here works its way through to the cars. You know, we've just been launching bi-turbo engines, and this kind of approach you see coming into the cars that people can buy.
Len, as we watch one of the Panoz cars come in, when you make a decision to make a commitment to this type of racing, do you plan for a 3-year program? Do you plan 5-year, or do you leave it open-ended until success comes?
You tend to leave it a little bit open-ended, but you don't want to go in just for a year. You want to build motorsport. You want to sort of maybe come in at the high level here, do a little bit more in terms of, you know, racing an S4, which we've got on the cars now, and create a broad base of motorsport, which has got a longer-term commitment.
There's obviously American Le Mans races in North America and a lot of international. Will Audi North America participate in the international overseas events?
Yeah, we want to do that. You know, we're looking to go through Silverstone, Nürburgring, and even looking at Adelaide as well, to keep the whole thing on the cars.
So if David Hobbs loses some weight, do you think can you put him into a car because he wants to get back to him?
I want to get back to Adelaide.
You want to get back to Adelaide?
Where my parents came from. This is a huge budget here, Len. Now, you're Vice President of BMW, of Audi North America. Who decides whether you're going to...
got that right.
Yeah, I'm glad I got it right. Who decides whether Audi's going to spend this money in North America, you or the parent company back in Germany?
We work very, very closely together. And as you said earlier, you know, with the touring cars, I got to know Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich ever so well. And it's a sort of team effect. You know, we've been very close for a number of years now. And we look at the budgets, we look at the opportunity. And, you know, we sort of decided this was a good thing to complement the Le Mans Challenge.
Yeah, because your sales are obviously up tremendously here in North America over the last couple of years, and you're expecting a lot more sales. Is this money going to come out of those increased sales, or are you going to increase sales more because of this program?
Well, it's all to do with building the image, and you know, obviously we've had a superb growth in our sales. We were 40% up last year. You know, we're looking to be selling
Well, unfortunately, we have to break a minute there because Bill Oberlin in the 43 car. Here we see him in the BMW V12 engine coming down inside one of the Panoz. That's the 93 car. Ooh, pinches him off there.
Oh,
just
Bill. That is the second spin that we've seen Bill Oberlin have in the BMW. This is very fuel efficient, this engine. But you know what? With getting himself into trouble like that, he can be in all sorts of trouble in a 12-hour race. Len, we could speak to you for a long time, but I just want to say thank you. Vice President of Audi North America, Mr. Len Hunt, responsible largely for these Audis that we see here dominating this event as we watch the 93.
That was the car that just got involved with
Look at the right rear
and I think
wheel.
they've exactly bent the suspension there when they ran into each other. He went wide, so the 93 car in a lot of trouble in that GTS class.
Thank you, Len.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Len.
Okay, we're going to find out more about this Viper and this rear suspension trouble. It appears that they did touch with Bill Oberlin. Is Bill Oberlin damaged? We'll know when we come back.
In Brazil, this coming weekend, can McLaren get back on track? Or will Ferrari teammates Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello be left to shoot it out for the title? Formula One invades Brazil next weekend. Catch qualifying live Saturday, March 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and then the race the next day, Sunday, March 26th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. David and I will be there along with Bob Varsha. And David, I think we are on pins and needles to see whether or not McLaren has solved their engine problems.
I think it's going to be a terrific race next weekend in Brazil. There's no doubt about it. And don't forget those times that Sam gave you, 11 and 11:30 in the morning. Unusual times for Formula One, but there they are. Now here's what happened just a few moments ago.
Nia Morim, who's driving the number 93, did not see Bill Oberlin. He drove into the apex, clipped Oberlin.
He clipped Oberlin, spun Oberlin right around. We don't see any damage on the left side of Oberlin's car, but you'll see the 93 car come lurching out to the left of the screen there. His right side was damaged, and it did damage to one of the wheels or the suspension.
It's funny, you think of the Viper, it's so big and heavy and massive as being bulletproof in a situation like that. It's interesting to see it fail. I don't believe the Viper had the chance to see the BMW. Try to imagine seeing back through that rear window and the C-pillar. I think it's hard for him to have seen that low car coming up.
Sam, you make a very interesting point. How many team managers have told you and David and myself in long-distance races, presume he doesn't see you?
Absolutely.
If you dive down the inside.
Absolutely.
Nia Morim is taken out of that car after a short stint. When the number 93 is fixed, this right rear suspension, Anthony Beltoise will get in. Anthony Beltoise. And there is Bill Oberlin still on his merry way. So obviously, or thankfully, no damage to the left side of that car after that incident. Twice he has spun so far. We are 49 laps in. We are almost 2 hours. Calvin?
Yes, well, I found an interesting spectator down here in pit lane, and that's Joe Burkle, who's the manager for Exxon Superflow Lubricants. This is the 5th year, Joe, that you've lent support to this event. Why do you keep coming back?
Well, Calvin, Sebring has just got a great, rich tradition. It's got a great fan following that we've always liked. and plus it's always got that endurance racing element of it. Great place to test products, test drivers, and to test the team. So it's just a winning combination all the way around, so we've always enjoyed it.
Sure, you're looking forward to being up on the podium here in about 8 hours or so, actually 10 hours before we get to the finish of this one, and giving the trophy to the winner tonight.
We sure are. I mean, it's a real credit to the teams the way they stick through the whole 12 hours of it. And we're off to a great start right now, so we're looking forward to it.
Good to see you here. Thanks for your support.
Thanks, Calvin.
There is such a variety of cars here to interest the fans. There is more than 120,000 people here for the weekend as we take a boat peep at number 3. This has been the leading Corvette. Chris Neifel was in the car. It appears that he is now going to be out of that car.
Justin Bell looks like he's going to take over. Justin Bell, of course, whose father was obviously incredibly successful in long distance racing, having a heck of a job there getting the belt done, which is one of the reasons why I can't go back into racing, because I can't even see the belt under you know what when I look down there in the car. So Justin Bell cinching him up there. This car now has lost quite a bit of ground one way and another, and it's now down in 15th spot overall, 4th in GTS.
And I believe Calvin's down there.
Yes, I am, Derek, and the driver change between Chris and Justin went wrong at Daytona. It cost them about a minute. Ultimately, they lost their race by 30 seconds, so a little bit of a delay there. But the Corvette team really struggled in the pits at Daytona. They made 4 extra pit stops over the Vipers because they couldn't get the full fuel load out of the car. They believe they've rectified that problems, but handling problems still seem to be a concern on the number 3 Corvette.
Yeah, I'm down here in the Viper pit, car number 53. Anthony Beltoise was on board. We saw what happened there when he had it coming together with that BMW. And what happened is that the rear suspension on this Viper, there's the drive shaft comes out to drive the wheel, and then a big suspension triangle. But what holds the wheel straight is a little, like a steering link, that dictates the amount of towing the car has. Now that just snapped in two. It broke off like a brand new Carrot when he had the accident. So what they've had to do is take out the 2 broken bits of the old one, fit a new one in, and then adjust it roughly to the right kind of towing so this car handles. Now they're getting on with it. They've nearly got the job done. But without putting optical tracking gauges on this car to set up the suspension, it's my bet that Anthony Beltoise is going to leave the pits and find out on that exploratory lap whether this car's going to handle well or not. And of course, if it doesn't want to handle, he'll be in trouble. He'll have to kind of drive round it, but that could cause some more tyre wear. They've got it finished. That's probably about a whole day's work in a normal garage, and they've done it in under 5 minutes. So off he goes. I think that's going to be fine.
The number 2 car there of Johnny O'Connell just came out of the pits. They've got that throttle problem and a gearbox problem. So he leaves the pits there in that number 2 car, now down in 26th spot and being hounded immediately by one of the Cadillacs there.
Way down. The Viper is underway again to go back to battle. This is car number 93.
And he's down in 27th spot now, just one behind the Panoz that we've just seen, and of course Anthony Beltoise at the wheel, whose father won the Monaco Grand Prix back in the 70s.
And he has 10 hours to try and play catch up, and we will be here for every minute of it. We'll be back.
In 1969, the Ford GT40s were nearing the end of their successful run. 23 car was driven by none other than David Hobbs. He, along with co-driver Mike Halewood, were teammates to Jackie Ickx and Jackie Oliver. This was the final running start at Sebring. Chris Amon vaulting into his Ferrari, while right beside him Mark Donohue getting into his Sunoco Lola Chevy. But it was the Porsche of Joe Sifford and Brian Redmond that beat everyone off the line. Donohue had won at the 24 Hours of Daytona, giving Roger Penske his first 24-hour victory as a car owner. Mark led, but retired with a broken chassis. The Ferrari of Amon and Andretti inherited the lead and tried to lap the second-place car of Ickx and Oliver, which started 11, just in front of Hobbs. The darkness brought cooler temperatures, but it wasn't enough to prevent Mario's big V12 from overheating. His lengthy pit stop enabled Ickx and Oliver to make up a 4-lap deficit and claim victory. As for David, he was a stealthy 51st.
And I'll tell you what, it wasn't stealthy because Mike Hailwood and I had to go back to the hotel at about 6 o'clock because we obviously needed to attend to various personal needs such as a drink at the bar and a decent dinner. And when we had left, of course, that car was languishing down at about 8th spot where we'd been. And to our horror, when we were awoken at about midnight, but all this guffawing and shouting from outside, and it was Ix and Oliver had won the race. Couldn't believe it.
That is one of the horrors of racing. You would think that teammates would celebrate the success of the other car, but in reality, you feel terribly left out. That could happen this afternoon with the Audi team running as well as they are. Someone may not make it to the finish and the other car may win.
Exactly, but I tell you what, that GT40, you'd be hard-pressed to find any sports car fan who doesn't think that is the quintessential example of a sports racing car. The look, the design, the style, the speed, everything about the GT40 was memorable.
Well, you know, Derek, I think one of the reasons it was for Ford, such a big factory. Here we go, an Audi pit stop, organized so many different drivers to try that car at one time or another.
Okay,
it became very well-rounded.
Exactly. The leader is in. This is Frank Biela. Remember, he has been in right from the start, so it comes up to just about 2 hours. The Le Mans rule states 60 kilometers an hour down the pits or 37 miles an hour. That's why it appears to be so slow. Flashing light on the dashboard.
Big corporations like Audi.
Is that, you know what, I think Frank or Sam, I think that's the rev limiter.
Yep.
On the dashboard.
But the big corporations can afford to try out a lot of different drivers, and more drivers there are, the more a car becomes refined over the course of its life. And I think this Audi is headed that way. It's going to be a very good car.
And of course, Frank Biela, as Len Hunt from Audi told us earlier on, of course, was the British Touring Car Championship under Len Hunt's tutelage back in 1996. So Biela himself got a lovely drive here. This is a big program by Audi, a lot of money, well funded, and obviously a great car, leading very handily. But with another 10 hours to go, it certainly hasn't won the race yet.
Fuel goes in, then we put new tires, a double stint on these Michelin tires.
Put a new driver in as well.
Ignition brake, first gear.
There's that light still flashing.
Believe it or not, it's not that easy to remember everything you're supposed to do.
See the mechanic there telling him to start it up.
He's killed it.
It doesn't seem to want to start.
A driver has a lot of responsibility when he gets into a car.
Yeah, this is the leading car. The Audi is not left the pit yet, but we're back with the Corvette number 4, Calvin.
Jumping into the car, Frank Freon is jumping in as Kelly Collins jumping out. I just spoke to Chris Neifel, who just got out of the 3 car. He said, boy, have we got a long day ahead of us. He said the car is just abysmal. Cannot get any power down. The rear end is just snapping sideways down the straightaways even, let alone going through these fast curves. So the 4 car certainly seems to be in a little better shape, but these boys are trying to make some big tire pressure adjustments. And once again, they're waiting for the fuel to go in before they can get that new set of Goodyears on this Corvette.
Oh boy, this is when the PR program collides with reality.
Yeah, and of course the other thing that's interesting about this race, we're hearing about that Corvette slipping and sliding around. It's on Goodyear tyre. We've got a tremendous tyre representation in this race today. We've got 17 on Michelin's, 12 on Pirellis, 6 Yokohamas, 4 Goodyears and 3 Dunlops. So a lot of different, a lot of variables go into these cars: chassis setup, engine setup, and of course tires. It's a very complex business to get it all right.
Yeah, it's a complex business just to get a driver into the car. Look at Frank Freon go through about 10 or 12 different operations, and of course you're rushing, you're afraid you're going to make a mistake, or worse still, that you'll get a belt tangled up and really delay the car.
That was Kelly Collins, who just got out. Annie Pilgrim, we know, started that car. Pilgrim, Collins, and Freon. And now we have a new leader. The number 77 car is our new leader. Capello is in that car right now. Ronaldo Capello is in the leading Audi. The second place car, we believe, is now Bill Oberlin in the BMW, as is the third place car. So a lengthy stop for the leading number 78 car, Biela.
That's the 27 car of Lionheart. Mauro Baldi into the car now. Didier Taze in the first stint.
Fascinating car this. This was the Ferrari. It's no longer called a Ferrari because of the Judd V10 engine in the back. Alan?
Yeah, it's the Doran Special, that's quite right, but they've had a few problems with it. The wheel nuts have been getting stuck on the car. I noticed on the rear left-hand wheel when he came to take the nut off that he could not get that nut off, and then the front right-hand, they had to crank up the supply of air in order to get that front wheel off. Anyway, they got it off, they put a new wheel and tyre on, and it's gone off. I'm sure it's going to be fine, and the leader's just coming into the pits as well.
Capello brings the leading Audi in. You can see that he's beginning to undo his belts to ready to jump right out of the car. He can get out, the driver change, Alboreto moves in.
Alboreto's helmet, on the back of his helmet there, some writing, and it says, great body, no mind. I said to him the other day, what are you doing here, still racing, Michele? You must be 40. He said, I'm 44. And he said, show me, look at the back of my helmet. It says, great body, poor mind, or something. And I said, you're about right.
Michele Alboreto, remember the heyday. Oh, Bill Oberlin finally gets out. Calvin?
Number 43 car is in. Bill Oberlin brings it in. He's turned it over to the Brit, Steve Soper. And Bill got into some trouble out there. The crew are looking at the left side of the car right now. There's some tyre marks on the left side. It doesn't look like there's any bodywork damage as such. They checked it out, but everything looks pretty good. The fuel is going in. Steve is hooked up. His belts are done up. He's waiting for the go-ahead. They're looking at the left front. The team is pointing to the left front, wondering if there's any damage down here. I can't see any, guys. It looks okay to me, but there is some concern. They're checking it out. There's a big black mark on the left front and also the left rear. Looks like that took a bit more of a hit with that Viper out there on the racetrack. The team goes to work. They're slapping on new Michelins now, double stinting the tires, double stinting the drivers as well. So first driver change on this 43 car.
Look at the beating these cars are all taking when we get to see them close up in the pits.
Boy, we're only an hour and 50 minutes into this thing.
Yeah.
Remember, we tied up the under tray of one of these BMWs with some wire earlier on, but Steve Soper, another product of the British Saloon Car Championship when he drove so successfully for BMW over there.
Absolutely. I mean, Steve Soper, resident in Monaco.
This is Frank Freehan in the Corvette, and you know what? He has nose damage. This is the number 4, rubs the ground. That will cause a pit stop eventually, or it'll just wear away. And then he'll have precious little downforce on the front of that car.
It'll wear away till he has clearance, but of course, as you say, he won't have much downforce as the Cadillac swoops by there.
So the Cadillac continues. The 09 car is now in 6th place. Lagorce did the early stint. Now it's Wallace. We'll be back. Welcome back, and the Audi has lost the lead for the first time today. A Panoz has, with speed, passed an Audi on the racetrack. The Jan Magnussen-driven Panoz. David Brabham started. Magnussen is in now. Is leading the 12 Hours of Sebring. Wow, what's going on here, boys?
Oh.
We haven't made a pit stop. The Panoz has not made the pit stop. The Audi has, so the Panoz obviously is a lot lighter right now. But it's nice to lead when your boss is watching. Don Panoz, of course, owns this racetrack now, owns the team, owns the new hotel.
Panoz has yet to
he's in.
Win a major long-distance race. Imagine if it happened here on a track that he owns and has put so much into.
Put a tremendous amount into. Sooner or later, he's going to have to bite the bullet, I assume, and resurface the whole thing, which will be an expensive issue. But a lot of people, you know, they kind of like the tradition of all this bounding and bounding around. It certainly makes a different challenge to all the other circuits in the world.
We can show you what happened with this Panoz.
77 car has just come out of the pits. Michele Alboreto, in the middle of his first lap, moves over there as he thinks he's going to get nudged by Magnussen, which he almost certainly would have done.
You know
so
what?
Got 2 Formula 1 drivers there. Magnussen, 2 years with Stewart, and of course Alboreto, a winner with Ferrari in Formula 1.
That was as close to a drop kick that didn't happen as we have seen. Magnussen could not stop that thing, and luckily Alboreto saw it at the right moment and just moved over.
There you see The 42 car with Jörg Müller. Jörg Müller, of course, the test driver for the BMW Formula 1 team. Very experienced Formula 3000 driver, a winner in Formula 3000. JJ Lato, his teammate, not looking too happy there.
Well,
could we talk about the traffic by the look?
Yeah, he could be. And you know, the white-painted BMW, white is the national racing color of Germany, but with these very low cars, it's tough.
Calvin's there. JJ, we can break in for a moment. What happened there? Did you run out of fuel on the last lap?
Yeah, ran out of fuel.
You seem a little annoyed about the decision to keep you out there and some of the pit stop strategy so far?
I'm very annoyed, you know. We have lost so much time, you know, just because of a couple of silly things, you know, and, you know, we really need to get the act together.
How much pressure is on with these events now, JJ? They're literally 12-hour sprints. You can't afford to lose a second or make any mistakes. Is this why you're annoyed at this stage of the race?
Yeah. You know, the competition is getting tougher, and, you know, team learned it already last year, but now they seem to be forgetting it.
What about the rear downforce on the car? We documented earlier you had to change the rear wing around. How is that affecting the drivability of the car in these hot conditions?
Very bad. It's very bad to drive. It doesn't. We haven't improved it much, you know. It's still always there's a lot, you know. It's really difficult to drive.
Yeah, well, they're currently running in 6 guys, but he's not a happy camper down here, David.
He doesn't sound like it. I mean, but of course that is the sort of thing that frustrates the heck out of a driver. I mean, you fight your way through this sort of traffic, and then somebody lets you stay out there till you run out of gas. I mean, that just ticks you right off.
One year at Le Mans, an engine blew in front of me. I was driving a Ferrari. Came into the pits to get the windshield cleaned. It was covered with oil. I couldn't see any. My entire crew was asleep in the pits. I had to get up, get out of the car, get a rag, clean the windshield myself, and go on in the race. JJ Leto, I don't think would have enjoyed that moment.
And he was turning the fastest laps of the race just before he stopped, so he was not hanging around. He was trying very, very hard. There's his car now in the hands of Jörg Müller, a very capable co-driver. And of course, the two of them are going to do this race together. A lot of these drivers, a lot of these cars here have got 3 drivers. In the good old days, of course, it was only 2, but these modern cars, really, it's a struggle to do 6 hours of driving in one day. The G-force, the bumps, and the loadings on the driver, but these 2 guys are going to try and do it alone.
Boy, that Viper doesn't look happy, Derek. Keep your eyes on it, the one that just got passed.
David, you mentioned loadings on the driver. Did you see JJ's wrists also had the same bandages that David Brabham showed us on the grid before this event started? There is so much kickback from the steering of these cars. You literally are hardly strong enough to hang on.
I'll tell you what, David Brabham there, developing a lot of G-force. You see that Trackers on the Panoz Motorsport. Look at him pulling away from Michele Alboreto in the 77 Audi, coming up to lap the GT leader, the 23 car there.
He pulls over nicely.
Pulls over nicely.
All right, now we're going to have a chance in a few minutes to talk with Dorsey Schrader, who's been actually out there. But my thesis here is that in order to do well at this track, you have to attack it. You can't be timid. And anyone who tries to cruise around here, the track bites him. So you've got to be aggressive for 12 hours, and the result is a lot of hard work, blistered, bleeding hands, and a tremendous sense of accomplishment if you do get through the whole thing.
Jan Magnussen is currently lapping in a 1:53, which is his best lap time. The Audi has done a 1:52.3, so lap for lap, the Audi has gone half a second faster. But you know what? The last lap the Audi did was 1:58 versus 1:55 for the Brabham. So
Alboreto running 6 seconds slower than that car is capable of, whereas Magnussen is right on only 2 seconds slower than their fastest lap.
Sam?
I thought I saw a loose right rear fender there. It didn't look just so.
Here's the number 2, Panoz, not having a good day. He's down in 34th spot.
O'Connell, Kato, and Klaus Graf. So Germany, Georgia, and Japan in this car. That's obviously Kato in the car.
Kato not looking too happy. This is the car that had throttle problems, gearbox problems, and it's way down, right out of the running now.
Another car with problems is our friends from the Olive Garden. They've been working on this dashboard for the last 15 minutes, so something electrical has sidelined this car, but the Lola generates so much downforce that it has potential. One of the cars we saw earlier on was the Lola Porsche, driven by Dorsy Schrader. It got in all sorts of trouble, which we saw everything right here. We're going to get a description from the man himself, Dorsy Schrader, after this break, because he's in the booth. We're going to replay some of the action and get it right from the horse's mouth.
The Exxon Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is sponsored by the Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family. By Pirelli and your local Pirelli retailer. And by Ray Bestis. For quality and safety, ask for Ray Bestis, the best in brakes.
Welcome back. Derek Daly, Sam Posey, David Hobbs, Calvin Fish, and Alan DeCadney, bringing you unprecedented coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring. We are on board the number 38 car, driven right now by Ralph Kellers. Remember, he had all the problems with his hand and his blisters, bleeding blisters, early in the practice sessions. Well, Dorsy Schrader drove this car earlier. We watched as he got himself in all sorts of trouble. He has made his way to the booth here to be with us. And Dorsy, you can even see how difficult it is for Ralph Kellers just to hold his head steady.
Yeah, the car is very, very stiffly sprung. Right here, a big bump there. It likes to knock the steering wheel back. A tremendous physical effort to drive this car. I'll tell you, we're learning a lot. We're really learning as we go because we didn't get any test time on the car, so we're using the 12 hours of the test. But the car's running well. We're having a problem with tire pickup. Now, I don't know if it's because of the Michelins or not, but if I go to pass the car and I got to go offline, I'm picking up the spent rubber from the racetrack on the outside, and I can't get rid of it.
Now, there was actually a discussion earlier of this car being withdrawn, but you decided to make it a test session, and here's one of the incidents. Talk us through this.
Well, right here, that was just coming out of the pits, and that was running out of talent mid-corner is what that was. Actually, this car only has 13 degrees total steering available in its current. Now, watch this. See the back bodywork jump up? It's picking up rubber from other cars, and it turned into a big ball, and that big ball came and got underneath the tire and lifted the whole back of the car off of the ground. I thought the tire fell off.
You're lucky in a 12-hour race to get away with two spins like that without hitting anything.
Yeah, very lucky. And I tell you, it's hard to pass the slower cars without going offline. And if you go offline, the tires build up in circumference as they pick the rubber up.
I was mentioning that just a few minutes ago, that you can see the rolled up rubber already, and we're only 2 hours into this race. Goodness knows what it's going to be like by about 8 o'clock tonight when you won't even be able to see that rubber out there.
Well, I had a big moment down here in 17 coming on the pit straights because I passed the slow car and I went around the outside of him. And when I did, I got into that rubber, and the thing was just going
just like driving on the beach.
Yeah,
it's like driving on the gravel.
I had full lock on and going straight as an arrow.
Number 2, Panoz car being pushed away, so that doesn't look like a good day for him. Dorsey, on the grid we saw David Brabham had his wrists heavily strapped. We did an interview with J.J. Leto in the BMW. His wrists were heavily strapped. And Ralph Kellers, your teammate, had those bleeding blisters. Try and describe to us how difficult it is to hold the steering wheel and drive fast in these cars.
You would like to have a nice loose grip. We always talked in driving school about loosening your grip and not wearing yourself out. Well, that's totally impossible in this case. The steering wheel kicks back so hard over these bumps, it's so violent that you've got a death grip on it, and you're using every bit of your energy to get through the corner. Turn 1 and turn 17 down here are just brutal.
As we watch the number 4 Corvette just came in, he is 4th in class in the GTS class. This is not a scheduled stop. They never took the bonnet off this thing at Daytona. This is not a good sign when you begin to go for the bonnet clips.
Not a good sign at all. And the two Vipers have taken the lead of this class now. The number 91 and the 92 car are leading the number 3 car of fellows. Neifel and Bell. Bell's driving. There's that front end that we saw dragging on the floor earlier on. Dorsey got some sort of an engine problem.
Dorsey, you've run, of course, at Daytona and here as well. So many people think, oh, Daytona's a 24-hour race. Sebring's only 12.
This is much harder. It's twice as hard as the 24 in its own right, because the 24 you've got the long banking, and you can you can relax up there. You can just sit there and take a breath. Here is just pummeling you. I mean, it's like getting beat up all the way around this racetrack. Physical effort is over double. I tell you, it's very, very hard. It's hard to describe how tough these guys got to be to go through this.
Looks like, are they trying to take his nose off? Which looks like it includes the radiator assembly.
Looks like he's been off the road. They were looking underneath it a minute ago. It's got some damage on the spoiler down there.
Earlier on, we saw when he exited the pits, the front spoiler was dragging the ground, so it was going to obviously wear itself away until such point as it didn't have sufficient downforce. But you know, this is a bigger problem. There's something else going on here with this Corvette. I mean, I think you're right, Dorsey. He's been off the road to cause this damage. I think they tried to get away as best they could, and obviously they can't do it. He is now dropping down the list. He is 16th overall. He is 5th in the GTS category. The only one I see below him is the other Viper, the number 93 Viper that we saw had the rear suspension damage earlier on. The number 3 Viper has done 56 laps, and the car that we watch right now
57 laps.
Has done 57, so they're within a lap of each other.
But he's about to go a lap down on the rest of his field.
As you see the lead Panoz car about to put another lap on Eric van der Poel, who we know because of a tire problem earlier will do almost three stints at the start of this event.
Three years ago, the inventor and businessman Don Panoz brought a little bit of France to the hills of North Georgia, establishing a race called the Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. It featured a spectacular flip by Yannick Dalmas's Porsche. He escaped uninjured. And there was a hard-fought win by Wayne Taylor and his Ferrari team in front of a sellout crowd. 1 year ago here at Sebring, Panoz's American Le Mans Series kicked off its first full season as a sanctioning body. The race was again spectacular, featuring the closest finish ever in this most historic of American endurance races. This year, the best sports cars and drivers from around the world have once again converged on Sebring for the Exxon Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring.
This is the leading Panoz car. Brabham, Magnussen sharing the Lions amount of duty with Pierre-Henri Raffinel. Magnussen is in the car at the moment. The bodywork is loose. Sam, you saw that earlier on. It looks like that rear bodywork is a little bit loose.
Well, we've seen the Panozes with troubles of one kind or another, but they are coming along. It's good to see their engines holding together, because the head gasket issue in the Robert Yates engine was a questionable 48 hours ago, and it seems to be fine now.
We're only 2.5 hours into it, just under 2.5 hours. They pulled about another second out on that last lap of the number 4 Corvette. We're tracking that story. He is still in the pit lane, still there working on the front of that car. Alan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. What they're doing is Frank Freon ran over some debris at some stage, and he punctured the aluminum radiator on the car. So they removed the whole of the nose piece of the car in one go. That's the nose, the headlights, and the radiator. So they pulled all that off. All the water inside the engine spurted out all over the floor, of course. So now they've got the brand new nose with its new radiator on, and they've got to plumb everything in. Well, that isn't easy. They've got to connect up all of these hose pipes and bleed pipes and air equip. It's about a nice day's job for anybody. They're just doing it in a few minutes, which is quite normal. What I'm wondering is, I hope they manage to get the headlights set on this car, because basically as soon as you pull the nose off, the headlights go with it. They could have a bit of a surprise when they come to drive this car at night if the headlights aren't set. But I don't think there's any damage to the car. It overheated, which is why Frank came in. And Frank has been sitting very patiently on board. This is a very, very frustrating and nervy time for a race car driver, because there he is, sitting inside the car whilst they do this monumental amount of work. But they're getting on with it. This is a very, very well-trained crew. You can tell they know what they're doing. And that's about it. I think they'll be out of here within about 2 or 3 minutes.
And somehow, of course, you've got to get water into that hot engine. I'm sure they've got some sort of pressure system to do that. There's the leader in the pits. That's Jan Magnussen. So will the, well, obviously the Audi will reassume the lead now.
John Magnuson, who drove, of course, for the Stewart team 2 years ago, lost that ride and has landed on his feet with the Panoz organization.
No tire change, so the Michelin's easily able to do double stints here. Alex Job car is in, the number 23 car. This was the class leader in GT.
Early, isn't it? Isn't that in early?
Was the class leader. The Dick Barber car, the number 5 car, had just taken it right before this pit stop.
Yeah, I've obviously got a problem with the car here. That's definitely an unscheduled stop. It's not long since they were in.
And they were so confident.
They were so confident. The GTS class is still being led by the number 91 Viper, Beretta Wendlinger and Dominic Dupuis. Dominic Dupuis behind the wheel at the moment as Magnuson takes the Panoz back out. Now, we've tried to follow a bit of strategy here. The Panoz cars were the first of the P cars into the pits, which suggested not good fuel consumption. Now suddenly they're able to go longer than the Audis. This is not good here for the number 23 car, not good at all. Lambert was behind the wheel for this stint. Alex Job, this is the team that the BMW M3 was built primarily to beat, and they have been so successful here. This is who BMW have been chasing. Buy, sell, or hold.com.
Well, here's a question from Doug Marr. Who won the first 12 hours of Sebring? Well, the answer was my good friend John Fitch and his co-driver Phil Walters, who was known as Ted Tappet, who died recently. They were driving a 1953 Cunningham C4R.
This does not look good at all.
I think the thing's stuck in gear, isn't it?
The leader of the GT class, we are only 2.5 hours in to a 10-hour race, and it all suddenly has got very calm. Alan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's one of those kind of tragedies that you could well do without. The car's just running like clockwork, and it comes in, and whether it's got the linkage has got bent or a couple of selectors inside the gearbox have come together, but something's definitely gone wrong in this car as far as the gears are concerned. It's a perfectly healthy car. They can't change gear on.
Alan, you just stay there and see, can you find out, did he hit something, did something break? But that is our GT leader who is now in trouble. And there's some guys that may be in trouble if the sun keeps shining. We'll be back. The highlights of hour number 2. The lead still the number 78 Audi, the first Panoz to strike trouble, the number 2 car. Look at this. Oh, Bill Oberlin gets a whack from a Viper who didn't see him. The right rear suspension on the number 93 car is now broken. Then we have a problem during the driver change of the lead car. Bill Oberlin comes in to do his driver change. And then J.J. Leto, frustrated. They ran him out of fuel. Look at this close one here. Alboreto moves over, and Magnuson takes the lead while the second of the Panoz cars gets pushed behind the wall. They have had nothing but trouble with that second car. Gearbox problems, and we also had fuel problems. Alan?
Yeah, I'm down here at the Job car. It's a real shame. It wasn't, in fact, the gearbox at all. They took the sump plug out of the engine because it had no oil pressure, and the sump plug's got a magnet on it, of course, and the magnet's got a lot of metallic matter there. This engine has lunched itself. It's very sad. Typical example of motor racing. Everything's running really smoothly, and then all of a sudden, a major problem. It's very unusual for a Porsche engine to let go like this, but that's exactly what's happened. It's run its bearings, and all that material, because it's come down onto that magnet on the sump plug, as soon as they take the sump plug out and have a look at it, one look at that plug tells them their race is run. And that's a little bit of water you can see dripping out of there, but I'm afraid the Job's car's day is over. Their drivers no longer have any work now.
Oh,
Up to the move.
This is the fight for second place. Second place, that is George Mueller in the BMW. Just loses that second place to another one of the Audis, the number 78 car, driven by Tom Christensen.
Well, at this rate of attrition, it makes you look back into the stats. And in 1986, only 36.9% of the starters finished the race. We might be headed for a race like that.
Yes, we could well be. We're only 2.5 hours into it, remember. But Tom Christensen takes that. He actually, David, he took the second place quite easily, didn't he?
He seemed to get, he was all over him through that twisty bit. The handling on the Audi seems to be very significantly better. And the 36 car looks like it's launched its engine as well.
This is not good. Guy Smith is behind the wheel. This is the car Stefan Johansson did a double stint in at the top. Jim Matthews, also a driver in this, but this is Guy Smith. And it is well and truly barbecue. You know what, I would have preferred to see him get that further offline.
Yeah,
he is a bit close to the action. Is Guy Smith running in 12th place? Now, no longer. No longer.
This gives you a good view of the track, though. You see how rough it is. You see the informality of the old guardrail, painted up to be sure, but still pretty old stuff. One of the warehouses out behind there, and you see it, the point David made. Look at all the tire, the rubber chunking offline there.
It's incredible, isn't it? And it'll get worse and worse as the day goes
and as you point out, you won't be able to see it come about 6:30 at night. The sun sets very suddenly here.
So Alboreto now is still leading. There is our favorite car of the moment, the Lola that Dorsey drove, about to be lapped by Michele Alboreto here. I don't like that car.
No,
they're going to have to move that.
He should have gone further off. They will have to move it. I wonder if that's going to bring out some sort of full court caution, although they didn't do that when they moved Jack Baldwin's car earlier on. Steady on, remember the Alboreto. Make sure that he's seen you in the mirror.
Alboreto, of course, has incredible experience as a driver. He once finished second in the World Driving Championship, driving for Ferrari. Yep. And before that, he had a couple of wonderful seasons with Terrell.
Jim Matthews is the owner of the car that we just saw blow up, and he is with Calvin.
Jim, what do you think has happened to the car out there?
Right now, we think it's the engine. You know, we just did a gearbox, and we're concerned that when the gearbox went, that it twisted the motor too tight. So,
gearbox was really a big problem at Daytona. I believe he changed 4 times. He came here, still problems. Is this something you get around, or does it take a major redesign on this car?
I'm no engineer. They made several revisions to the gearbox. They thought it should be better.
As a privateer, how frustrating is the pace of these factory teams? I mean, they're running around there in 52s, 53s in the race today. What can you do to compete with that type of pace?
Try harder and spend more money.
There you have it, guys. You're going to open up the checkbook one more time.
There is no substitute for an open checkbook when you want to go fast in motor racing. But Michele Alboreto now passes Ralph Kellner's. He is reasonably safely in the lead. He is shown as about 10 seconds ahead of his teammate. The car that Frank Biela started, Christensen, is now in it. Bill Orbelin, Gugnon, and Steve Soper, who we believe is in the number 43 car, is third. Alboreto, those of you who are, wow, did you see that? Did you see that? Alboreto turned around the apex and that tow truck was there and he got it out of line. Yikes.
Yikes indeed. There's a 51 car of Sasha Masson and Bob Wallach. Bob Wallach, one of the most experienced drivers here, the previous winner of this race. He's won Daytona, what, 3 or 4 times? The only big race he has not won is, of course, Le Mans, which has eluded his grasp. Now he's right behind his teammate, the number 5 car.
Barber of Sebring,
which is the leader in the class now, after the 23 car has stopped.
These are the GT leaders and their teammates. The team is now run by Tony Dow, who has so much experience with sports car racing. They moved to Atlanta, set up a brand new shop. These cars and the race shop and the race team were put together in such short notice, but Bob Wallach, along with the other drivers here, are massively experienced. And remember, Wallach started from the pit lane because of a fuel problem and has brought that 51 car up into
his 5th overall in GT car, following his teammate who is leading.
The teammate is leading. The Mueller Lure car leading the GT category. The GTS still is Beretta. We'll be back. Welcome everybody to Speed Vision's live coverage of the 12 hours of Sebring. This is the leader. This is a slow-mo. Watch the tow truck. Right there in his vision, and look at this, gets her just sideways, drives onto the curb. I bet you his heartbeat just took a little skip there. Still safely in the lead by only 6 seconds from his teammate, but Audi in control here right from the get-go. Now, let me just take a second here. We mentioned earlier on, if you want to speak in cyberspace to us, you can log on to speedvision.com, hit our email button. We have a computer right here at the racetrack. We will attempt to answer some of your emails. Since we went on the air, we've had more than 750 emails. Let me just quickly go through a few of them. John Bixby asked us, could we take a complete in-car camera, a complete lap with an in-car camera? Yes, we will do that, John. We're going to bring it up very shortly. Tony Park asks, to what degree is Ford involved with the Panoz effort? They are not involved at all. And Duncan Meller, his question is, he has heard that tires for endurance races are inflated with nitrogen to keep them from changing size. Is this true? No, it's not true. They do use nitrogen because it is dry, no moisture, and that keeps the pressure more consistent. And here is your onboard lap. John Bixby, turn your volume up, sit back and enjoy them. Watch the driver's head.
And we hear the Audi team might be putting the rain tires out, and you can see over Ralph Kellner's head wide. Down to the hairpin.
Slowest corner on the track.
Little chicane exit, which makes it difficult to pass on the exit. Chicane here now used to be much more sharp and defined than that. To the circuit, the much northern end of the circuit here.
Now you have to judge what the traffic will be and make a safe pass and not lose too much time. The P cars accelerate so much faster. You'll recognize his name from winning at Daytona also.
That same hairpin coming out, obviously the acceleration very different on a GTS car to a P car, a lot heavier and less power. Although of course this car with the biggest engine capacity out there, it's got plenty of grunt, tremendous amount of torque this car.
All these turns now are part of the rebuilt track, and they weave and weave for about a mile and a half until you're finally on that old back straight. And I think this is a tremendously challenging part of the track. And gentlemen, when it gets to be night, it's going to be very, very hard to see where you're going through here. They've tried to bring out some reflectors. You see a few cones there, here and there. They put reflectors on some of those brake markers, but it's going to be very, very tough at night.
And if it gets to be wet, it'll be very, very tough. Believe it or not, we had torrential downpours here on Thursday. There's the black clouds that are gathering here. We have potential thunderstorms forecasted for today. Audi, I believe, have rolled out some wet weather tires. Calvin?
Well, I'm down in the Audi pit, and one of the drivers of the lead car, the number 77 machine, is Alan McNish. How's it going so far, Alan?
Well, so far, we're leading the race, so I can't say it's too bad. The car appears to be reasonably good to drive, quite easy to drive. But the one thing that's good for us is it's getting better the longer we run.
Tell us about the race pace. We see 52s, 53s on a clear racetrack. Is that what you anticipated from this team?
Yeah, I did anticipate we'd be roughly around about there when it's clear. I didn't think the traffic would be quite as bad as it is, because there's a difference of about 4 and 5 seconds on some laps, and I thought it'd be maybe a difference of 2 or 3. But that seems to be the way it is for everybody, not just us.
Seeing some sprinkles of rain. The rain tires are out in the pits right now. Any running with this car in the wet?
Only here the other evening when it was very heavy beforehand, but we haven't done anything else, so it's a little bit of a finger up in the air and see how she is when the race.
Okay, well, it's new days for this car, but this team is unbelievable. It's 80 is here in Sebring to assist with everything, and just a tremendous effort going on to try and score the victory here in the 12-hour.
And boys, have a look at this here. Tom Christensen is in the number 78 car. He has caught the race leader, Michele Alboreto. Christensen has just done the fastest lap of the race at a 1 minute 51.9, running down Alboreto. So McNish was right. The longer these cars run, the faster they seem to get. But Christensen making a bit of a statement here to this Audi team, just how fast he is.
Alboreto seems to be running off the pace of his of Frank Biela, who was driving that car before him. He is doing like 154s. Biela had done a 52.
There it is. There's our GTS leader. Moves over. Look at this. They split the Porsche.
This is where you have to be so disciplined. Don't you agree, Derek? I mean, look at that great shot coming down that back straight, the ultimate straight.
Christensen's going to come down the inside. He's going to take the lead here. So the number 78 car back into the lead. Christensen behind the wheel. Biela did a double stint, and Pirro has yet to get into that car. Well, you are told by your team manager, you go as fast as you can, just don't abuse the machinery. We presume that Christensen is not abusing it to get the type of speed he now gets from that car. Welcome back. This is the leading Audi. It has been dominant most of the day here. Christensen behind the wheel has just taken the lead from his teammate Alboreto. Don't forget, on Speed Vision, race week every Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All the news from all the races from all around the world and all the good juicy stuff. Race week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday night on Speed Vision.
There's the new hotel built just outside of the old hairpin. The new hairpin basically was installed. It's about the same radius as the old one, but the idea was to allow some runoff room, which wasn't possible with the old hairpin, which backed up against an access road. Nowhere to go beyond the old hairpin.
Look at those laps of Tom Christensen, 118-mile-an-hour lap on lap 74. So he is really cranking that car around. Christensen took that car over from Frank Biela, so he's now leading. Alboreto, of course, took over from Capello. I think I misinformed you. I said Alboreto had taken over from Biela. Biela was driving the 78 car. Christensen's now driving. Tom Christensen, of course, a Le Mans winner.
And David, every lap, remember, it's a 3.7-mile lap, involves lapping cars. I mean, you don't get a clean lap around here.
Absolutely not. So to do a good time like that is incredibly difficult.
What you hope is that you encounter slower cars at points where they can easily be passed, rather than at the beginning of one of the sections which has nothing but S-bends.
Now the dark rain clouds that we mentioned earlier are only on the back of the track. The weather has seldom been a problem here at Sebring. Believe it or not, only 5 times in 47 years has significant rainfall come in the event, but 3 of those times have been in the last 8 years. And Hans Stuck in that M3 that's now running ahead of the Audi would love the rain to come down, even if he is 20 or 30 laps behind. Actually, it's not. I don't believe that is the new M3. You see the headlights ablaze. You use the headlights all the time, despite the fact that it is daylight, hoping to catch the eye of the unwary GTS or GT driver that's ahead of him.
Well, Tom Christensen's got quite a bit of experience. He won Le Mans in 1997, done it 3 times. Started driving in 1977. German and Formula 3 champion, Japanese Formula 3 champion, winner of the Formula 3 World Cup, second in the Japanese Formula 3000 championship, and he's a Formula 1 test driver, and third in the German Super Touring Car Championship, and of course he's won here at the 12-hour and of course the 24-hour at Le Mans. So in a relatively short career, Tom Christensen has been very, very successful.
Quite a dossier for Christensen.
And we're watching for the leader, Tom Christensen, to maybe make a pit stop this lap or at the end of the next lap. Very quickly, Paul Chandler from Westward Ontario, Canada, sent us an email. Which tires are being used today? Everybody's here. Pirelli, Dunlop, Goodyear, and Michelin. He asked which has the edge. It may appear that Michelin in these long-distance races may just have the edge. Christensen does not peel off on this lap. Not peel off. They are ready for him, though.
Michelin are on the leading Audis, and Michelin are on the leading Vipers as well. So Michelin at the moment are leading 2 of the main classes, and Michelin are also leading the GT class. I believe that Dick Barber's cars have got Michelin tires.
Yes, they do.
I'd like to pose a question to our email correspondents, which is, what do you think is the best looking car? I mean, I find the Audis to be stunning myself, but then I like the Panozes and several of the other cars.
With the black clouds, see the rain has actually begun to fall about a mile from the racetrack. The left side of that car now, the rain is actually beginning to fall. Not near us yet.
Very localized, out on that orange grove that's just outside of the track.
On board with Christensen. See the lights? He doesn't need to look at the rev counter. As soon as he sees that right side light light up, he knows to change gear. That is just below the rev limiter. I believe the leading Viper number 91 is in the pits. There he is right there. The leading Viper number 91 just brings it in. Dominic Dupuis was in that car. We presume if the rotation stays as it is, that Olivier Beretta will now get back in.
Here's that business of fastening up. You see, you can hardly see because of the helmet. You can hardly see down to where you're trying to fasten those belts.
No, the bottom of the helmet gets in the way, doesn't it?
Gets in the way.
And the belts are held by rubber bands. So as soon as you undo the latch, the belts spring back because of the rubber bands, and you can slip out of them with your shoulders, and then you simply lean back, pull on the belt again. The rubber band stays stretched, which is no big deal.
And of course the rubber band holds the belt out the way so that the driver getting in doesn't have to ferret around trying to find a way to put his arm through. He can fit his arm through the belt loop.
So the leader is in. Tom Christensen, having done a great stint, laps in the 151.9 second range, brings it in. Calvin's there.
He's bringing it down, Derek, very slowly indeed. 60 kilometers, about 37 miles per hour. The team Yost Pit are ready for him. Just a swarm of red mechanics, but a certain number have to go over the wall and do the refueling first. They may look at a driver change. Emanuele Pirro has his helmet and stuff on, but I don't think they're going to do it. Tom Christensen takes the drinks bottle. He looks like he's going to go for another stint. That's the normal way here. Double stints on the tires. The only people who can touch the car while the refueling is being done are the tire technicians. They can inspect the tires, make sure everything is safe, So the Michelin guys are going through all 4 corners, checking that the wear rate is okay, there's no blisters, there's no problems with the tires, and it looks like they're going to give it a thumbs up. I don't see any tires coming over the wall. They're waiting for the last couple of drops of fuel, and as the 78 car sits here in the pits, the 77 car takes the lead in this race.
Stalled it.
You have to turn the engine off. That is the Le Mans rule. He's on the rev limiter. That's why you see the flashing light. We saw that earlier. For those of you who are not with us, we did see that earlier. On the rev limiter, almost on the run to the first corner.
Car, obviously handling characteristics just a little bit different to what it was when he brought it in. Car full of fuel. There's the number 4 GTS car.
Running in P30 as we speak, way down the grid. A lot of trouble for that car.
Look at that rain cloud there. It makes you think of 1965, when there was an incredible deluge here. The Chaparrals were dominating the race at the time. When we come back, we'll have some footage from that event. Stay with us. In 1965, the Chaparrals dominated the international racing scene. At Sebring, they were pitted against a bevy of Ford GT40s and Ferraris, led by international driving stars Graham Hill and Pedro Rodriguez. The two Chaparrals had run fast in testing, but could they last 12 hours at Sebring? Dan Gurney in his modified Lotus 19 swapped the lead with the Chaparrals. Then late in the afternoon, one of the worst deluges in Sebring history. The coupes handled it better than the open cockpit cars, where drivers reported water up to their elbows. One lap took 12 minutes. Hap Sharp and the number 3 Chaparral had built up a 5-lap lead prior to the rains, and once darkness hit and the conditions got better, Sharp maintained the advantage all the way to the checkered flag. The Chaparral's one and only win at Sebring. Troy Rogers, working for Chaparral, had to climb down into the car with an electric drill a hole in the bottom of the monocoque to let the water out. It's a very scary moment. I watched it. Here's third place car into the pits.
Just peeled off, no driver change again. They are also on Michelin tires, I believe. Alan, you there?
Yeah, it's just a standard change here for BMW. They brought the car in. They are changing the tires. York Muller's staying on board. They're going to they have to put the fuel in first, of course. Car's covered in rubbish on the front of it. Look how filthy that car. Off he goes, no problem. I noticed they start these cars in gear. He has it in gear, he presses the starter and the accelerator at the same time and just shoots straight out the pits.
That saves about just under a second. I remember we practiced that at Le Mans with the Jaguar. Tom Walkinshaw was insistent that you had it in gear, and as soon as the engine fired, away you went. So the number 42 car back out. George Mueller and J.J. Leto now shown in 5th place, and the Panoz, as we speak, mainly because of the pit stops, is now shown back in the lead. So now we have a lot of the P cars out of sequence. So that is going to be a bit of a cat and mouse game between team managers as this thing rolls on.
Well, of course, both Audis have just had a stop. Tom Christensen came in first, and then Jeff Magnus came in, and that put our number 1 car, Panoz, back in the lead.
Joel Trugan asked me how would I compare the Panoz and Cadillac to the Can-Am cars that I raced back in the late 1960s. And I think the answer is that in terms of the excitement and the visceral sense of performance, they're probably very much the same. But the new cars make much, much superior use of aerodynamics, and I imagine lap a great deal faster, accelerate faster, and better balanced all around. They're no more exciting.
The Zero Raffinelli, the Olive Garden car, has been pushed back behind the wall. This is driving down through the paddock from the pits now. The pits are over on the right-hand side, down through the paddock to the transporter.
this is not good. This is not good. That's not a good sign when you do stuff like that.
They had that whole dashboard out earlier on. Of course, you look at these modern cars, they're an absolute nightmare of wiring. The wiring looms on these cars are quite extraordinary. And they had all that out, and they've obviously got some sort of severe electrical problem which controls the engine management system. And once that starts going awry, you're in big trouble. There's the #1 car being driven by Magnussen still. But he too will have to make a stop relatively soon now.
Doing his double stint, Pierre-Henri Raffinel is the third driver. He has not been in it yet. Brabham with his double stint. Now Magnussen. That will take us about 3.5 hours into the race before Raffinel gets into this thing. And that brings up another good point. When you have a car that leads like this, David, and you've had two good drivers in to build this lead, there's a lot of pressure on Raffinel to maintain this pace and not make even a small mistake.
Absolutely, the pressure is tremendous on the third driver, and there's no doubt about it that Panoz seems to be getting slightly superior fuel consumption over the Audi. Look at it bumping through that final turn 17 here.
One of the worst places on this track because you have such high lateral G loads, and then you get this severe bumping up and down as James Weaver goes down inside one of the Vipers. But that just tears your head off, that last corner, particularly at very, very bumpy section. Oh, Weaver, you see that? Got it sideways.
The 93 car out, up and running again after having that contretemps with the BMW, breaking its right rear suspension. The 93 car now running wherever he's running.
You know, if a front engine car, i.e. the Panoz, were to win this race, it would be a very unusual event. The Nissan 300ZX in 1994 was a front engine car, and then from there you have to go all the way back to a whole Porsche era to get to my BMW in 1975. So front engine cars are a rarity in winner's circle here.
James Weaver wisely moves over. He is nowhere near contention. David, you just mentioned the 93 car. Looking down to our scoring here, he is 16th overall, and he is 5th overall in GTS class. As we're still on board with James Weaver, this is a handful, but it is a test session for this car. But there is the leaderboard. The Panoz, the unusual car, is leading. Welcome back. We are on board with one of the Audis at the Exxon Superflow 12 Hours of Sebring, and you can see the traffic jam here as he makes his way down through the S's and then onto the long, long back straight.
Another prototype in front of him there, which he's not really making a lot of ground on. In fact, isn't that car in front just slightly pulling away? Is that car in front, in fact, a Panoz? No, it's not.
On board now with the GTS leader. This is the number 91 car. The number 91 car driven by Dominic Duke. No, we think Beretta got back in that car. The Corvette just got his lap back. That's him right ahead. So they are struggling to keep the pace here. Just got one of the laps back. I don't know how much fuel they have on board because the heavy weight of fuel makes a big difference to the speed they run here. It is getting darker and darker and darker. Steve?
Some trouble in the pits for the 92 car. David Donahue, after they fueled and changed tires, was signaled to leave. He actually started to leave and moved about 6 or 7 feet when one of the crew guys alertly noted that the right front wheel nut was on cockeyed. Stopped the car, fixed the problem, and then sent him. But they lost about probably 15 seconds in the deal. I tell you, the crew got a real lecture after that stop, guys.
Oh, we have contact. We have contact with the number 9 car. This is the Cadillac. Wallace was behind the wheel. He has obviously hit something, torn the front off that car. We have a replay.
This is the last turn on the track, and you see
the nose is already missing.
Under braking. The track goes off there to the right under the bridge.
Left front wheel is punctured for some reason. We don't know why.
And the left rear wheel is out of whack.
Did he make contact with somebody on the way?
Whatever it was, it knocked the nose off before it all happened.
He was running in 9th place, so it was a good, reliable run for the Cadillac. driven by Andy Wallace. This car is a little bit heavy. It's about 70 pounds over the weight limit. Very much a test session right now. Look, he hit something. Look, the wheel has actually hit something. Did he try to go down the
left
inside?
rear wheel has hit something too.
Okay, so did he try to go down the inside of somebody, David? Maybe get a whack?
Oh, he did get a whack.
Yes,
the right front wheel is flat. This one's been damaged and is flat.
Yeah, and you know what? He's not going to drive that back. They're going to have to get a tow truck and hoist that thing out of there. We're going to try and get a word with Andy Wallace as soon as he makes his way back to the pits.
Interestingly, Andy Wallace said that car was as easy to drive as a street car. It was so well balanced, so a little of the Cadillac character comes through.
This is the 92 car. Have a look at what happens here. Yikes. This is the David Donahue, Tommy Archer, and Mark Duez car. David Donahue is behind the wheel. He started this. They've done a full rotation. No damage, thankfully.
He, of course, is Mark Donahue's son, Mark Donahue, who won just about every full-course yellow, gentlemen.
Because of the Cadillac, they cannot refire Andy Wallace's car. They have to send the tow truck out. Everybody gets bunched up and gets a bit of a breather. And we are now just over 3 hours into the 12-hour event, the Exxon Superflow 12-hour event at Sebring, presented by Dodge.
Well, of course, I drove here in 1971 with David Donahue's dad, Mark. We had that fantastic 512 Ferrari, prepared by Roger Penske, the most immaculate race car that had ever been seen in long-distance racing up to that point. Unfortunately, Mark and Pedro Rodriguez had a bit of a very rough relationship, and here we see the son, David, who's just had a bit of a spin, now out under the full course caution.
Mark actually, despite dominating American road racing, managed to win only one of the 3 classic races, and he backed into that one, Daytona.
The leaders of the lead, yes, he is in the pits. So the Panoz car peels off. Pierre-Henri Raffinel gets in and gets the pressure cooker treatment. This car has the speed and appears to have the fuel economy also.
Remember, this is the team that Mario Andretti will be driving for at Le Mans in June. Speed Vision will have flag-to-flag coverage of that event too, and we are looking forward to that just tremendously.
The perfect time to stop while there's a full course yellow, 91 laps.
And there's the nose of the Cadillac.
The Audi still has the fastest lap of the race, the only car to be in the 151s. The second Audi, driven by Alberto Capello, is in the 52s, and then the BMWs are in the 53s, except for Leto that did a 51. Let's take another look from the on board of David Donahue, getting himself in just a little bit of trouble here, David.
Coming up to this right-hand bend, it looks to me like he just may have locked up the brakes a little bit, or just did a bit too much trail braking, which his dad used to be very keen on. Turning into that right-hander, lost the rear end and didn't quite catch it quick enough, but slid off into that vast outfield, hopefully with no damage to the car.
Armless spin, got away with it, no flat spot on the tire. This is the 5th place BMW.
Just look at that tire debris on the front of that car. These cars just picking up the most awful amount of debris off this track.
Didn't they just stop? They just stopped earlier, so they've taken this yellow flag situation, tried to turn it into an advantage, and came in for tires. So Mueller will now do the best part of 3 stints before JJ Leto goes back in. And we have our second Cadillac in the pits. This is the number 19 car, Van der Poel, Taylor, and Max Agnelli. And another member of our crew, Andrew Marriott, is down there. Andrew?
Yes, I certainly am. Well, obviously, as you said, everyone taking this advantage, getting refueled here. Very interesting to see the very front of the car, if we can look where the grille is. Just see how badly damaged that's been by all the various stones. Just shows you how tough this racetrack is here at Sebring. Now the tyres going in, the fuel complete. No word yet of what happened with Andy Wallace. We'll be checking that situation very soon, but down here, otherwise, it seems to be perfectly calm.
Max Agnelli behind the wheel. He crashed on Friday morning here on his way out of the pits. Made a small mistake that turned into be a big mistake. Did a lot of damage to the back of that car. They have since begun to run not just fast, but reliably. Or not fast enough, but reliable. We'll be back.
The Exxon Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is sponsored by Exxon Superflow Motor Oil. Exxon Superflow provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts. By BMW, the ultimate driving machine. And by Pirelli and your local Pirelli retailer.
Welcome back. We are live at Speed Vision, at Sebring on Speed Vision. Good
like
luck.
Monaco.
Yes, it does. Good luck at the new hotel there again. Just over 3 hours into this event, and we will just very quickly show you the action of hour number 3. Stand by. Started off with a major blow. Not good. Guy Smith is behind the wheel. You can see Guy Smith. The engine exploded big time, and then this is the leader. Look at the tow truck. Oh, he just gets it sideways when he sees the tow truck at the last second. Very scary. Now the two Audis side by side here. Christensen now in the 78 car takes the lead. This all happened in hour 3. Then the 91 GTS leader, Beretta, takes over. Christensen is in the pits. Stalls the leading Audi, finally gets it underway, and away he goes. That allowed the Panoz, driven by Magnussen, back into the lead. He then made his pit stop, and then he dropped further back. But we are still under a full course yellow.
The race is developing along lines exactly as we thought it might. The roughness of the track taking a toll. The weather possibly about to play a role of some kind, although right now, and most of all, Steve Evans certainly nailed down the character of the spectators. Of course, many of them come here from the beaches of Fort Lauderdale and the east coast of Florida, college students on vacation. Somebody just says, hey, let's go to Sebring and spend the day, and if it's a bad day at the beach, the attendance goes up at Sebring, and if it's a good day at the beach, the attendance goes down, and I think that accounts for the huge crowd here today, because it's not that sunny a day, and it's ideal for watching racing. And I think we see some of those very fans that we're talking about. This place has actually seen more people probably exposed to the sport of sports car racing for the first time than any other track.
And most of those people have been exposed to the sun for most of the weekend. Sunburn, the
There's a clone of mine there on the top of that truck.
Now, one of the cars we have actually followed very closely this weekend is the Olive Garden Lola. This is a fascinating car because there are so many unique things about this car. They've taken it away behind to work on it. They fixed it behind the dashboard earlier with the wiring harness, but this car is unusual. A lot of people think that it will be the car of the future. Let's take a closer look.
This new Olive Garden Raffinelli Lola V10 is a really trick bit of kit. It's clever because it's basically got a slightly wider than normal Formula One glass fiber monocoque, which enables the air to get down the sides, giving it plenty of download, but it's got a full underbody tray, and that gives sports car download from its flat bottom. It's really very trick indeed, and obviously the way the future is going in sports car racing.
We made a very nice car in '98, and we went into the wind tunnel about a year ago to try and improve it, to update it, and we found some good updates, but you can't stop good engineers going further and further. So in the end I found myself paying about $2.25 million in additional R&D to make really a new car. So this is an evolution of, but very different to the older car.
I think when I went to Stilola in September and we decided to work together, we put our ideas that we learned from the Rally and Scott last year that was very fast machinery. And with the ideas, the car that was very growing all the time, the races, we said, what shall we do now to be in front? And when we talked on the paperwork, they had the right ideas how to get the car in the wind tunnel to give us the downforce that we needed in the front of the car. So the car we have less drag, we have a lot more downforce. How better to do it than copying a Formula One car?
Alan, the Academy gets so excited around these racing cars. Of course, it is a carbon fiber tub as opposed to a glass fiber tub. We are inside the number 3 car. That is Ron Fellows in the Chevrolet Corvette, currently 3rd overall in GTS, 12th overall in the field. But we are under a full course yellow caused by the spin by Andy Wallace in the Cadillac. There is the remains of the Cadillac. Hit something very hard on the left front suspension. Right front side doesn't look too good either, David, but he's obviously hit somebody hard.
He's hit somebody hard, but what I can't understand is as we see this picture, whoever he hit doesn't come through the picture. So I'm not sure, I just can't imagine what he hit, but he damaged the car severely, knocked the nose off and damaged that front wheel. Both front tires are flat.
You know what?
Obviously having a heck of a job to get.
You know what I think happened here? The whole front's gone off the car. I think something broke and he hit the concrete wall. The left rear suspension may have broken. That's what we're being told.
We see the left rear suspension flopping around as the car spins.
Andrew, can you add to that?
Yes, I can. Well, as far as I know, the problem with Cadillac, I've just spoken to Bill Riley, who designed the car, and they're not saying much. The car is going back to the truck to be worked on out in the paddock area, so a little away from where we are. So that car, I would suggest, is definitely out of the race, but Cadillac certainly on their strong learning curve.
I put my hand up here and suggest, or go out on a limb, that Andy Wallace got on the brakes, something broke, it turned 90 right, hit the concrete wall. That's why the front of it's in pieces.
And the first thing to go was the left rear. That's what I suspect.
We're going to slip away for a quick break while we're under full course yellow. When you come back, we will be gone for a short time. You will hear Greg Creamer and Jeremy Dale, who will take you through the next 2 hours of the 12 hour of Sebring.